so sincere apologies. I'd now like to invite Dr. Deependra Sharma, Dean and Professor, the United World School of Business, to kindly felicitate Dilosa. Taliyan basti rehni chahiye, come on. Whoa. Ahmedabad Design Week 3.0. Our theme this time is Design and Innovation in Defense and Aerospace. And to speak on topics around this, we have a lot of people coming in from the defense sector, and we are extremely eager to listen to their point of view. Dilosa, when we started and this theme was proposed, everybody was like, design or defense ka matlab kya logic kya hai, you know? And as we worked on it, we realized that we should have done this before. There is so much. So maybe to throw some more light on this, I'd like to invite Dilosa to take over the podium. So would you like a cordless mic, or you're comfortable speaking there? You're comfortable speaking there, yes, sir. Yeah, I know that height, you can't miss it, na, Prahlad sir? And before Dilosa starts, could we please have a video welcoming him? Team Innovation, can you please play the video?
Distinguished guests sitting in the front row, the faculty, young students, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am not going to speak on design. I am going to speak on the design which I worked in Kashmir. I will give you an insight of Jammu and Kashmir, the little history, what happened after Pulwama, and what made us remove Article 370 and 35A, and what is Article 370 and 35A. Since we are running behind schedule, I'll go straight on to the topic. Can we have the PPT, please? Yeah. I want to talk to this audience today because you are a young, energetic audience who are very live and very active on the social media. You engage with people, you discuss issues. There is a lot of propaganda, there is a lot of false narrative by Pakistan, which is thrown around. I want you to be educated enough to counter that propaganda. So I'll be giving certain facts, and whatever I speak today, it can be Googled. It is there on official websites. This is just a preview. This is how I laid out my presentation today. Before I go into the history of Jammu and Kashmir, I'll talk about myself for about 10 seconds. I am General Dhillon. I was commissioned in the Rajputana Rifles, that is an infantry regiment, in 1983. I'm an ex-NDA. I've had 7 tenures in Jammu and Kashmir, 6 of them specifically in Kashmir Valley. Starting September 1988, I am first-hand witness of when the terrorism started in 1989. I am a witness of 19th January 90 events when Kashmiri Pandits exodus started from the valley. I was there during Kargil, I was there during Parakram. I was 4 days old corps commander when Pulwama happened, and how we killed those chaps within 100 hours. That clip was from that press conference where that famous statement came into, "Kitne Ghazi aaye, kitne Ghazi gaye." I was there when Article 370 was removed. So I will tell you first-hand information of what is Kashmir and what happened in Kashmir. When people talk about Kashmir, you must understand this is a map of Jammu and Kashmir as it existed on 15th of August 1947. And thereafterwards, when Maharaja of Kashmir acceded to India, this was the state of Jammu and Kashmir. And by only the area, The percentages are given, and Kashmir Valley per se is only 7.7% of Jammu and Kashmir. So must understand the narrative of Pakistan. Kashmir Valley is only 7.7%, and it's not the whole of Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir is much bigger. It includes Gilgit-Baltistan. It includes Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. It includes Aksai Chin, which has been illegally ceded to China by Pakistan. So don't get carried away by Kashmir, 7.7% being Jammu and Kashmir. Now this is the demographic distribution as it exists as per the 2011 census. And this does not include the 3 lakh plus Kashmiri Pandits who are shifted or who are pushed out of Kashmir Valley, and they were staying in various camps and various cities all across India and the world. This slide is important. The top 2 and the bottom left pie chart is almost similar to the rest of the country. This bottom right, age profile, this again is 2011 census. Why I'm showing this is, if you see the bottom right pie, 62% of the Kashmir's population in 2011 was below 30 years of age. If you do the same transposition now, maybe 66, 67% of Kashmiris, or people of Jammu and Kashmir, are below 30 years of age. Why this is important? This is important because these 67% of Kashmiri population was born after 1989. That is when the terrorism started. That means the young generation, or 2/3 of population, grew up in the gun culture. They grew up with the scars. Their psyche is scarred by the culture which they have seen. They have seen people being killed by terrorists. They have seen people dying in explosions. They have seen people dying in IEDs. They have seen the houses being destroyed in encounters. They have grown with the issue there. So when a Kashmiri talks to you and he tells you he has a problem, please don't wish it away. There is an issue there. His psyche has been, the radicalization has happened. The killings have happened. His cousins, his brothers, his friends have joined terrorism and died. His parents, his uncles, his aunties have been killed mercilessly by the terrorists. He has seen bloodshed. So please grant that boy or the girl her or his due. He has an issue there. We must understand that as very, very informed society. Jammu and Kashmir is in India in itself. The religious, the demography, religion and demography, and the combination of the whole thing. Like they say it in Hindi, wo ek guldasta hai. It's a beautiful bouquet of flowers. All religions, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, Christian, Buddhist, all religions are there in Jammu and Kashmir. And let me tell you, there never had been a single instance of communal rights in the state of Jammu and Kashmir, in spite of diversity like this. The terrorism started in 1989, then thereafterwards, religion-based killings did take place. But the public at large lived in harmony, lived in peace with each other. And just an instance for you, in Kashmir, cow beef and the pork is not sold openly in the market as a mark of respect for each other's feelings. That is Kashmiriyat. Little more about it a little later. Now going to the history. You would have heard the UN resolution, a lot of propaganda. You would have heard a lot of propaganda on how the accession took place, the legalities of it. I'll come to 370 and 35A later. Maharaja Hari Singh was the ruler of state of Jammu and Kashmir, as I showed you the map on the first slide, on 14th of August or 15th of August, when Pakistan came into being or was carved out of India, which already existed. Like all other states, there were two types of areas under the British Empire. One was which was governed directly by the Viceroy. and others were where the state kings or the rulers were still existing, and they used to report to the viceroy. So area which was directly under the viceroy, that came directly under the control of India. The princely states, which had a ruler, were given the choice either to go with India or with Pakistan. They all made their choices, and accordingly they went either way. Maharaja Hari Singh was also given the same choice. On 12th of August, he asked for some more time to decide about it. So there is something called Standstill Agreement. So that Standstill Agreement came into being, which allowed the Maharaja to take a little more time to decide which way he wants to go. 2 days after that, 14th of August, Pakistan came into being. The dates are important. Pakistan came into being after an agreement was signed with Maharaja, which gave him more time. But Pakistan was in a hurry. Pakistan did not wait. And Pakistan sent in the Razakars, or the raiders, or the Qabalis. They were the people who were basically herds of tribesmen, controlled by Pakistan Army, officered by Pakistan Army, and they walked into Kashmir. And when they came to Baramulla, they plundered Uri, they plundered Mohra, the rapes took place, the buildings were destroyed, the killings took place. So by the time they reached the outskirts of Srinagar, that is when Maharaja decided to accede to India. Indian state or Indian army did not intervene till that time, because we as a new nation were very clear we were still agreeing to the Standstill Agreement. We were a law-abiding nation. This is when Maharaja acceded to the Indian Union. That is when the Indian army was flown in, the 1st Sikh Regiment landed in Srinagar, and they pushed back these Qabalis, the raiders, much beyond what is the line of control today. For the reasons I'm not going into, that is where the ceasefire occurred, and that is where subsequently became the line of control, or popularly called as LC these days. Some area continued to be with Pakistan, which is now called Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. So Indian part of the Kashmir is legally acceded to the Union of India by the Maharaja, like all other princely states who acceded to the Union of India at that time. And the instrument of accession is same as was for other states. Not a word change. Now the point about, there's a lot of Pakistani propaganda on UN resolution says there should be a referendum, there should be a plebiscite. But what the propaganda does not say, when will the plebiscite take place? There's a lot of propaganda again on why did we go to the UN. You must understand, after the Second World War, which was a bloody war, where so many innocent lives were lost, United Nations came into being. United Nations came into being with the aim and charter of resolving the issues between the nations in a peaceful manner, without letting the nations go to war and lose precious lives. India was a country which had just got its independence, and as an independent, responsible state, we probably thought United Nations is a now organization which will resolve issues peacefully. And India has always been a peace-loving country over the 5,000 years of our history. We have never invaded any country. So maybe on those lines or those understandings, we thought probably United Nations will do a good job of it. And we as a responsible nation went to a responsible world body organization. That's a different thing. United Nations failed miserably and failed in all other aspects also. But coming back to what Pakistan says, that United Nations resolution says there should be plebiscite in Kashmir. You must understand what is the United Nations resolution saying. United Nations resolution has 3 parts. And these 3 parts are sequential in implementation. They are subject to the first being implemented, then the second will start. And what is the first part? First part is the government of Pakistan will withdraw all its forces and all its tribals from the state of Jammu and Kashmir, the complete map, and also stop furnishing any material aid to those fighting in that area. This is the first condition of the United Nations resolution. Pakistan Army did not withdraw from the Jammu and Kashmir. Even today, they are occupying the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. They did not stop abetting the terrorism. Even today, they are abetting the terrorism in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So first condition has not been met, which was the responsibility of Pakistan. If this condition was met, then the second condition would have come into being. Second condition is the government of India, when it is established to the satisfaction of the committee which is coordinating this whole thing, that Pakistanis are moved out, government of India will withdraw its forces, but leave a certain portion behind, which will be responsible for ensuring law and order. Now, once that is done, then is the third part, which will be referendum, plebiscite will take place. Then the people will decide which way they want to go. But Pakistan did not complete the first part. So whenever someone talks to you or tells you that as per the UN resolution, there is supposed to be a plebiscite or a referendum, which India is not allowing, please tell him back, there are two more things which are supposed to happen before that. And first is the responsibility of Pakistan, which it has not so far implemented or complied with. This is more than 350,000 Kashmiri Pandits who had to leave their homes, their homelands, their Rozi Roti, and fled to Jammu. Well-to-do families were staying in tents. I know friends who have grown up in tents, where they had a flourishing lifestyle, flourishing business back home in Kashmir. They have found their roots again, they have found their businesses again, but the history has not been kind to this community. Now, I'll briefly, since this is a short time, I will briefly touch upon 370 and 35A. This has been abrogated when I was the Corps Commander there. As Corps Commander, I was responsible for complete activity on the line of control and across the line of control, including in POK. We did carry out offensive actions or the actions in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir against the terrorists and the terrorist launch pads. As the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister Sahab says, घर में घुस के मारेंगे, घर में घुस के मारा वहाँ पे हमने. So what is Article 370? Article 370, like I told you, Jammu and Kashmir became the accession document was signed in 1947. This article was not a condition in the document of accession. This article was not even existing when Jammu and Kashmir became part of India. This article was inserted in the constitution much later. And this article, it is written, was temporary and transitional. That means it's not a permanent article. And what did this article say? This article said, all the provisions of Constitution of India will not be applicable to the subjects of Jammu and Kashmir. This article is not religious specific, or it is not specific to any particular religion. It is applicable to all the subjects of the Jammu and Kashmir, irrespective of their religious belief or faith. That means all subjects of Jammu and Kashmir, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Buddhists, or any other caste, religion, were coming under the impact of this. And when I say the constitutional provisions of Indian Constitution will not be implemented in J&K, what does it mean? Constitution has been amended 106 times post-independence. That means 106 new articles have come in which were for the welfare of the state or welfare of the people. Those were never made applicable in Jammu and Kashmir because of this. I'll give you a few examples. Right to Information Act, such a powerful act, wherein you can question the government, you can just put in a 10 rupees or 100 rupees this non-judicial paper, and you can ask for any information. Of this building has been constructed by the government, you can ask who is the contractor, how much money, when was it paid, what were the installments paid, what was the material used. Because government is utilizing your money. But this, because of Article 370, Right to Information Act was not made applicable in Jammu and Kashmir. You could not question the government there. Another human act. There was a practice in olden days, the students may not know it, where the human excreta was carried by another human on his or her head and carried to a different place and dumped there. This was an inhuman act, inhuman thing to do. There is an act which says scavenging, as it is called, is unlawful. Anyone who forces other person to do this will be punished. This act did not get implemented in Jammu and Kashmir because of Article 370. So all the good provisions, 106 of them of Indian constitutional amendments, did not get transferred to the subjects of Jammu and Kashmir, of all the religions. So this act was discriminatory to the public of Jammu and Kashmir. So when it was abrogated on 5th of August, it was welcomed because now all the provisions of Indian Constitution which are applicable to any other citizen of India were made applicable to people of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, Article 35A. Article 35A decides who is a citizen of Jammu and Kashmir or domicile of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, this is again discriminatory. One major provision in this is if I have a son and a daughter, my son marries outside Jammu and Kashmir or marries a girl who is not a subject of Jammu and Kashmir, he does not loses his inheritance rights or my property. If he marries a girl from Kerala or from Europe, he will continue to inherit the property of the father. But if my daughter marries a boy from Madhya Pradesh or from Afghanistan or from USA, the daughter loses the inheritance rights and the subject or domicile of Jammu and Kashmir. So it was gender biased. It was biased against 50% of the population of the Jammu and Kashmir state. Now, another aspect, the non-state children, the children of the non-subjects, were not allowed admission in the schools, in the government schools. I must tell you something more interesting. When partition happened, people were displaced from today's Pakistan, from today's India to this way or that way. Like my family came in from what is today Pakistan. But the moment we came down to Punjab, we were given the equal amount of land, which we held in Pakistan. We were given a similar house. And from day one, we were citizens of India, we were domicile of Punjab. But people who came to Jammu and Kashmir from West Pakistan, as it is called those days, because East Pakistan is now Bangladesh, the people who settled in Jammu and Kashmir did not enjoy the privilege of domicile of Jammu and Kashmir till 5th of August 2019. They were stateless people in the state of India. They were citizens of India, but they were not domicile of Jammu and Kashmir. They were contributing to the economy of Jammu and Kashmir, but they were not enjoying the fruits of domicile of Jammu and Kashmir. They could not vote in the Panchayat elections. They could not vote in the District Development Council elections. But they could vote. They could not vote in the State Assembly elections, but they could vote for Parliament because the Indian state gave them the Indian citizenship. First time after 5th of August, when Article 370 and 35 were abrogated, that is when they voted in 2020 in the District Development Council elections. Imagine a person staying in the state for 75 years and not having a basic right of being from that state. So these acts were discriminatory. No one tells you this. Pakistani propaganda only talks about 370, our privileges have been taken away. 106 additional privileges have been given, not taken away. 35A, our identity has been taken away. No, sir, identity has been given to the girl. Identity has been given to that West Pakistan refugee. Because of this 35A, international companies could not come and do business in Jammu and Kashmir. The job creation was not there. Employment opportunities were not there. Foreign investment was not coming. These were the problems. And you must understand, there's a very important correlation between history. 1989, the terrorism started in Jammu and Kashmir. 1990, Indian economy opened up to the world economy. And all the multinationals and world is a global village concept came into being. Jammu and Kashmir lost this opportunity by 30 years plus because of terrorism. No development, no economic investment could happen in Jammu and Kashmir because of 35A, and secondly, because of the security situation. If my family in 1990 owned a scooter and a cycle, today my family owns 4 cars. Whereas reverse is true in Jammu and Kashmir. Because no investment came in, 35A, no investment came in, terrorism. Loss of life is a separate subject. So you must understand why 370 and 35 had to go. It's only questionable why it did not go earlier. Why wait for 75 years or 73 years? So it was a historic decision implemented with 100% conviction and utmost peaceful way of doing it. Most of these points I've already covered. Since these articles were there, accountability of the government of Jammu and Kashmir was very limited. Nobody could put question. And now coming to the bifurcation of state of Jammu and Kashmir. Ladakh has been made a separate union territory, and Jammu and Kashmir is a separate union territory. This, again, there is a lot of propaganda. But this is not the first time in the history of India this has been done. 12 times earlier, the states have been bifurcated or trifurcated for the ease of administration. Punjab has been trifurcated into Punjab, Haryana, and Himachal Pradesh. Bihar into Bihar and Jharkhand. Chhattisgarh has come out, and 12 times this has happened. And now I will tell you, people who have traveled to Ladakh and Kashmir, now imagine there is a state, and great mighty Himalayas, like Mr. Prahlad Kakkad said in the morning, the mighty Himalayas are bifurcating the state. Ladakh portion is the other side, and Kashmir is this side. And there is only one connecting road, Zojila Pass. In earlier days, Zojila Pass used to remain snow-covered and non-motorable for 7 months in a year. Now with improved equipment and all, it remains closed for about 4 to 5 months. Imagine you cannot travel to your state capital for 7 months. And if you have to go to your state capital, you have to come down to Jammu by flight or go to Srinagar by flight or come by Manali route and go by road. How many poor people can afford this? The governance at your doorstep principle was defied or denied to them. They could not approach their governing headquarters for 5 to 7 months. Now that is the administrative constraint which forced the government to bifurcate Ladakh. Again, it's not on religion basis. Everything has been made to believe that everything happened because of a religion bias. All the subjects of Ladakh, irrespective of their religion affinity, are now under the UT of Ladakh. Pakistan, I don't have to say much on this, 1989 onwards, continues terrorism. Peace is not going to be allowed to come in. And small thing I want to tell here, Kashmiri Pandits were the mainstay, like since I'm standing in an educational institution, I must say this, Kashmiri Pandits were the mainstay of Jammu and Kashmir's education system. Primary teachers were mainly Kashmiri Pandits, higher secondary teachers, university professors, deans, vice chancellors, all were Kashmiri Pandits. When Kashmiri Pandits were thrown out of Jammu and Kashmir, from Kashmir, the education system collapsed. The quality teachers, they went missing. And then, combined with this, was the first thing which the terrorists did in '89. I was a young captain there in Kashmir. They burned down all the schools. Those days, there used to be wooden buildings of pine wood. And pine wood has oil in it, it burns like a furnace. They burned down all the schools, all the teachers of Kashmiri Pandit origin were thrown out. The education system suffered. Now that was the aim, that any society, which is educated society, will question your actions. So aim was not to let the Kashmiri society get education, so that they don't question the designs of Pakistan. I'm rushing a little because I want to take on some questions because that gives a lot of things. Now, this is how today Kashmir is peaceful. Stray incidents of terrorism completely governed by Pakistan do happen, but they are taken care of. A lot of peace is happening, a lot of business is happening, a lot of tourists are coming there. The propaganda of Pakistan of being a blockade, lockdown, has been totally crushed. All the ambassadors and the high commissioners of various countries in Delhi were taken to Kashmir. They were driven through the Lal Chowk. Lal Chowk is the city center of Srinagar. They were driven through this. I have personally briefed them. European Union members of parliament were allowed to come to Kashmir. They again moved around freely. They were briefed. They met the cross-section of people of Kashmir, both the delegations, all three delegations. They met the school teachers, they met the farmers, they met the businessmen, they met the government officials, they met the artisans, they met everyone in the Kashmiri society they met. So there's nothing to hide. India's biggest strength is the transparency. And situation is normal. I'll just take a second on the security aspects. The team security forces, as we call it, that includes Army, Jammu Kashmir Police, Special Operations Group of Jammu Kashmir Police, CRPF, the intelligence agencies, the civil administration. On 5th of August 2019, when government decided to repeal the acts of 370 and 35A, we had two-point aim. And we had declared this aim beforehand. One was, there will be no civilian killings. And second was, the writ of the government will prevail. And there will be no collateral damage, there will be no burning of the shops or the buildings or the buses, no law and order situation will allowed to happen, no stone pelting will be allowed. And for next 4 months after 5th of August, not a single civilian was killed by the security forces' bullets. Not a single stone pelting incident worth its name happened. The writ of the government was made to prevail. The implementation of these two acts of abrogation of 370 and other things was the most peaceful period in Kashmir's history of last 30 years. And that is how the strong government made sure the strong decisions are implemented. I'm just flashing this. All these figures are on the net. Now, after 5th of August, this is the type of investments which are happening in Kashmir. This is the type of Jammu and Kashmir. This is the type of developmental projects are being undertaken. This is the type of infrastructure development is happening. This is the type of flip to the tourism is being given. Again, the government initiatives. Because what is a common man wanting? Common man wants bijli, roti, pani, kapda, good education, good health schemes, good infrastructure, good environment to go about his business or his rozmarra ki zindagi. That is being ensured. Look at the last line. 11 airports coming up. AIMS, 2 of them. IITs, 2 of them. IIMs, 2 of them. Degree colleges, 54. Professional colleges, 11. Women's university. Because biggest hit was taken by the education. Any society where education is not good, the society's future is dark. So major initiative to make sure people of Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir, they get quality education so that they can decipher from right or wrong. This fourth last point, market intervention for the crop. Kashmir is an agrarian society, basically dependent on apples and other fruits. They used to be bought in bulk by the dealers from Delhi. The whole orchard is bought for 10 lakhs. That would mean he picks up the apples at 10 rupees a kg. He comes and sells at 300 rupees a kg in Delhi. Now this has been done away with. NEFED, which is a government organization, buys the apples from the farmer in his field at the rate maybe 5 or 6 times what it was being offered by the bulk traders. Money gets transferred into his account electronically. This is just one initiative I'm saying. That is how people are accepting this change. With this, I come to the end of my talk. It was basically to tell you about Kashmir's little history, UN resolution, Article 370, 35A, and government initiatives and how the peace is prevailing now. I'm open to questions. Aim was to give some time for questions. Yeah, please.
Thank you so much, sir. Would you be open to a few quick questions? Agar hum mic
The way you
घुमा-
wanted, ma'am.
है ना? We have a little time because we have just one more speaker after you before we get into the panel. So any questions? Please have ADW volunteers. Volunteers, can you help me with the mic, please? Yes, here, I have a mic.
Sorry, I had to rush it because of the time. Otherwise, I generally take about 1 hour to explain Kashmir. And that's too less a time as it is. Okay. Yeah, you are audible.
Like why we have rushed to UNO for this Kashmir issue. In fact, Sardar Patel has a plan B for that. That is the first question. Second, we were offered this permanent membership of UN, whereas we have offered this to China before this 1960s. And then after we had got a war with China. So why our diplomacy has failed?
Okay, thank you.
And another question also I have, let me ask.
इतनी heavy अभी पूछ रहे हो, दो तो आंसर कर लें तो.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Gentlemen, first question, first part, I think I answered in my presentation. That time's government, for whatever reasons, they went to the United Nations. In the hindsight, I can only think because it was a new nation and they realized the United Nations is a new organization which has come into being. And charter of the organization is to resolve the issues between the nations without any bloodshed. So they probably went to the United Nations with that aim that it's a new organization, it will solve the problems. What United Nations did is a separate issue altogether. Now, second question about why we offered our United Nations permanent seat, Security Council permanent seat to China. My knowledge is as good as yours because I also Google, you also Google. So this is a historic thing which happened much before your or my birth. So they must have the reasons at that time, which I think I won't.
Okay.
My impression on that I won't divulge here. Yeah.
Okay, so problems are still continuing.
Is there anyone else asking the question, if you don't mind?
Sir,
Yeah, we can give a chance to other person.
only
Don't
one
mind,
question.
please don't mind. We are running short of time. There, somewhere.
Hello, sir. Sir, my question is, should we able to get Pak-occupied Kashmir back sometimes? Or
Sorry, come again?
should we able to get Pak-occupied Kashmir sometimes back? Or will it remain a political tool to be used between India and Pakistan?
So I think he's saying if we will ever get the Pak-occupied Kashmir
POK,
back. Did I
POK.
get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of people in this country thought 370 will never go. 370 when the time came. So POK will come when the time comes. And it's a resolution in our parliament. So we are bound by being a good democracy and the biggest democracy, we are bound by our parliamentary resolutions. POK will come at an appropriate time.
Dilo sir, एक last सवाल ले लें, if you're okay with it. One last question. Yeah, there was a show of hands there.
Preeti,
Where?
this way, this
You
way.
want a question?
Right.
Okay, I'm going to give it to the lady. We need democratic gender representation.
Preeti, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Sorry, there was a move. I'm so sorry. Please ask.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Our last visit in Kashmir was in 2016 when, coincidentally at that time Burhan Wani was also killed. So what we observed in Srinagar was the public sentiment was strongly against the government. So has that, which is really surprising and sad to see, so has that perception changed after 2019?
Burhan Wani and incidents are Guzra Jamana.
Yeah.
Those things don't happen anymore.
I get it, but the whole sentiment that
Yeah.
the Indian government is against Kashmiris, you know?
See, this sentiment is a narrative building. This is a propaganda because what happened is it was very easy to send out a child, pay him 500 rupees, go and stone pelt, go and raise slogans. Here I must tell you what happened. A Kashmiri boy who picks up a weapon or becomes a terrorist, we did a study there over 1.5 years. 7% get killed in first 10 days. 9%, including that 7%, get killed in first 30 days. 17% get killed in 3 months. 36% get eliminated in 6 months. 63 to 64% get killed in the first year. That means 2/3 chances are you will be killed in the first 1 year, starting from day 1 till 365th day. And then we did another study wherein 83% of the people who joined terrorism were stone pelters at one time. That means today's stone pelter is the tomorrow's terrorist who is likely to be killed in the first year itself. And this is one part of Operation Ma which was being flashed. This was told to the mothers of the terrorists. This was told to the mothers of the stone pelters. Physically approached and informed कि ये data है. This had a major impact. 50 boys returned after having joined various terrorist tanzeems in that 1 year. And this sentiment or this show of sentiments by dharnas and mujahiras, as they are called there, this is not happening anymore. Stone pelting is not happening anymore. All these Jindabad, Murdabads are not happening anymore. That time, the radicalization of the Pakistan-funded systems were working. Those have been crushed. Hurriyat used to give a call, tomorrow is Band, irrespective whether you have to go for a flight or you have to go for an exam or whatever, and they used to be Band. Today, Hurriyat is a non-existing organization. Killed it. Okay, so that is what has changed Kashmir. Zurrat ke saath mein, himmat ke saath mein, pakke irade ke saath mein. All these institutions of terror have been curtailed or cut down to size one by one. Today's Kashmir is a different Kashmir. Thank you.
On that brilliant note, and also respecting time for the next speaker, Dilution sir, you've been extremely patient. We've started late, so apologizing, but thank you for that brilliant talk. And to deliver the vote of thanks, I'd like to call Sambit Pradhan, the assistant professor from UIT.
Thank you. I leave this here.
It has indeed been a rare privilege and honor to have General Dhillon address us. And Kashmir has been a proverbial iceberg for us who are non-Kashmiris and from, if I dare to use that term, mainland India. But today, I believe the 10% which is visible to us has been at least made 70. Thanks to General Dhillon. Thank you very much for that. And thank you very much for taking us through the true history, taking us through the abrogation of the Articles 370 and 35A, and illuminating us with the government initiatives, the exemplary work of the security forces deployed in Kashmir, and of course, his brilliant oration. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Dilution sir, will it be all right if a few people are going to ghero for you and ask you some more questions there? Will you be open to it? नहीं, अगर बाहर मिलेंगे तो ठीक है. There are many people who just want to know more about Kashmir. Yes, sir.
Okay, I am available 24/7 on Twitter. My handle is tiny_Dhillon. I am on Insta. you can approach me. And anyone is free to ask any questions. If someone is meeting outside, there's no problem at all.
क्या बात है? Sir, you want to
Like
say something?
I got this phrase, Pravani. Okay. Yes, sir, please. Sir, may I introduce you? Lieutenant General Jaswal was the Northern Army commander, which looks after complete state of Jammu and Kashmir, and that includes the Jammu region, that includes the Ladakh region and the Kashmir region. So he was a commander at very difficult times, and a wonderful job sir did there. Sir, please.
So kind of you. I just wanted to clarify a few things. He gave a correct answer, absolutely spot on, regarding why we went to the UN. You see, we went to the UN, and the question of POK, I'll clarify, there were three conditions. One, immediate cessation of hostilities, which took place. Second, withdrawal of all troops of Pakistan and Indian Army, except the administrative units of certain Indian Army and the state forces. They could remain at the logistic nodes in the POK area, etc., including the Pakistani. Sorry, it is not included for Pakistan, only for India. The third was plebiscite thereafter. These were the three conditions. First condition was met, ceasefire took place. The second did not take place. They never went back. So graduating on to the third stage of plebiscite doesn't arise at all. This should be very clear. Secondly, just to quote, 1975, the UN has declared that the problem between India and Pakistan, as far as we are concerned, is a bilateral thing. They can resolve. We've got nothing to do with it. Point number two regarding 370. I just want to clarify in algebraic formula type. Is Article 370 part of the Constitution? Yes. Is there a provision in the Constitution to amend any part of the Constitution? Yes. Which is that Article 368. There is a famous case of Keshwananda Bharati and the state of Kerala, 1974, wherein the whole thing revolved around that what is the basic structure? Does it destroy, by removing that article, does it destroy the basic structure of the Constitution? Now, there was a 14-member bench for this. And they described as to what is basic structure. That was, if someone's limbs are cut off, he can still survive. If his legs are cut off, he can still survive. But if his head is chopped off or the heart is taken out, he cannot. So that destroys the basic structure. If in case Article 370 is removed, does it destroy the basic structure of the Constitution? No. Therefore, under 368, can 370 be removed? Yes. This is the reason and the justification for 370 to be removed. I thought I'll just share my thought.
No, I'm glad. I hope you've got that, and thanks for that clarity. It was brilliant because, as we say, a generation that banks completely on Google, this kind of information is almost half-baked and not available. But thank you, sir. I'm so glad you decided to speak. Thank you so much, sir. Dilon, sir, thank you. Thank you. Could I have the volunteers of Team ADW just help. We're starting the next session immediately. ADW volunteers, just help us set up the stage for the next session. Our next session is going to be with Wing Commander Saurabh Chauhan, sir. Just give us a minute. Saurabh, so you're good with the tech? Can we start? You're good? Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm amazed by the fact that we have a very, very patient gathering of men here today, unlike a lot of people in the audience who seem to be impatient. So requesting all the audience members to come in front as we begin session number 2, Ahmedabad Design Week 3.0. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for the next speaker, Wing Commander Saurabh Chauhan, sir. Can we please have Saurabh, sir, on stage? I'm sure we can do better in terms of clapping a little louder for Saurabh, sir. I'd like to call Kishore Bhanushali ji, Director Research at Karnavati University, to kindly welcome Saurabh, sir, to the Ahmedabad Design Week. We please have the veena and the stole. Thank you so much. Just stay with me, sorry. No, that's, yeah. The subject that Saurabh sir is going to speak on is IRNSS performance evaluation of SPS service on military aircraft. Saurabh ji, honestly, it's a tad bit Greek to me, but I'm hoping I understand when I sit and listen to you, because for many people, while they understand a little bit of defense and military related issues and talks, this is going to be an eye-opener for us. So without further delay, I invite you to kindly take the podium. And before Saurabh sir starts with his talk, Team Univation, can we kindly have his video, please? Just a second. Parth, can you play the video, please?
I think this is supposed to come at the last.
This is part of your last slide? There we go, sir. Sorry, sir.
Not a problem, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Wing Commander Saurabh Chauhan, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. and especially the very good afternoon to all the distinguished speakers, the faculty members, and to all the young brains of India. Imagine a scenario. Imagine yourself going to a different city, which is not at all known to you. In today's scenario, you go to these cities very confidently because you have the GPS or the global positioning system with you. Okay, I want to go from point A to point B, I'll utilize this system. Now imagine another scenario. We are flying in the aircraft, close to 350, 400 sorties for a day. All these aircraft leave around the military aircraft, the civil aircrafts also. They are heavily dependent on the GPS system, the global positioning system. To bring out two scenarios, first of all, I switch off my GPS. Imagine that scenario, every flying object in the air going without direction. And to worsen the situation, especially in war, I'll feed wrong coordinates to these flying machines. That is more dangerous. With this, I introduce my topic of presentation. Can you have the presentation, please? That is aircraft real-time tracking using the RNSS. That is your Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System. Since I understand the people are from all the disciplines, so I'll be covering the basics of it, followed by I'll try to pitch in this presentation in the simplest way possible so that it can be grasped by all the people. And at the end, I'll try to come to a point how fruitful it is for every discipline also in the future. So I'll be covering my topic under the following heads. What is RNSS system? The necessity for indigenizing your own navigation system. The real-time aircraft tracking system, what actually the system is. Whatever field trials we have conducted over a period of last 4.5 or 5 years, the comparison with the established GPS and the differential GPS system, the advantages of having your own navigation system, the various applications or the future potential of these satellites which has been launched at a cost of close to 2,500 crores. And the present status of the Indian Air Force on the implementation of RNSS system on the aerial platform. Basically, the RNSS consists of a constellation of 7 satellites which are placed at an orbit of 35,000 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. These 7 satellites can be further divided into 4 geosynchronous and 3 geostationary, which covers your entire Indian region. It provides an accuracy close to 10 meters within India plus 1,500 kilometers. I repeat, plus 1,500 kilometers around India with 100% integrity. That has been tested on the field trials. If you look at any, you call it global positioning system or per se the RNSS system, it has 2 types of services. The first one is, which is available to all the people, all the users. We call it standard positioning services. That means I can use it, anybody in this room can use it. Because their codes are known, their ICDs are known to everybody, it has been made in the public domain. And the second thing, which is of the larger interest to the defense forces, are the restricted services. If you take it in the GPS parlance, it is called your L2 frequency, whose codes US never shares with anybody, even with the military forces also. But with this, we are having our own restricted codes or the confidential codes, which is for the pure military or the confidential applications. Basically, these satellites operates on 2 frequencies, L5 and the S-band. I'll not go into much of the details of it, but just to remember L5 and the S-band in this. And the system, as I have covered, it provides an accuracy even for the normal users of 10 meters, but the trials have proven that we have conducted close to 70 hours of flying. And the results, what we have obtained is, the results were better than 5 meters. for the Indian system. What IRNSS is, basically it consists of your 3 segments. One is the space segment. One is your space segment. That is, I was talking about those 7 satellites. Second is your ground segment. These satellites requires course correction. They deviate over a certain period of time. The integrity monitoring. So these satellites are being controlled from the ground, especially from Bangalore and the area around Bangalore. And one of the hubs is in Space Application Center, that is your Ahmedabad only. And the third one is the user segment, that is you, me, anybody, which consists of your ground objects, aerial platforms, sea applications, endless opportunities are there. These were the satellites which has been launched from 2013 till 2018. Now, anybody, it's a very, very natural question. Actually, I did my MTech from Indian Space Research Organization. So when I was going, my topic of specialization was Global Navigation Satellite System. So initially I thought, why to spend close to 3,000 or 2,500 crores on having your own navigation system when you have your other navigation systems which are well established, that is GPS, GLONASS, Galileo, they have established their world-class players. So why unnecessary to spend public money of 3,000 crores? First of all, the GPS is a foreign controlled body. At any point of time, if you want to tweak the satellites, it's very much possible from the ground. We have faced one of the situations in 98 Kargil war, where when we were attacking Pakistan, we were asked US to share their confidential frequency, that is L2. L1 is known to everybody. We are using L1, that is how your GPS are operating. We have asked that, they have denied. They told it is for their specific applications. And just to keep the talks here, they deterred the frequency. The heart of any satellite is the atomic clock. The frequency of vibration of these atomic clocks can be varied. Once you vary that, the accuracy can be varied. The difference between this clock and your atomic clock is, this clock drifts by 1 second in 24 hours. But your atomic clock differs by 1 nanosecond in 25 years. That is the specialization. India still don't have a specialization in designing the atomic clocks. But after the failure of the satellite number 7, we have started these initiatives. So this is one of the fields which the people, especially from the engineering faculty, they can ponder this point upon. The indigenization of our own atomic clock, which is a hot and the current issue right now. So they deterred the frequency. So with that, the accuracy of what GPS we were using on the various attack platforms, we were thinking we were firing at the correct position, but it was falling at some other place. And India lost it 40% of the ammunition, 40%. Just it was wasted, just because the frequency was deterred. This is a case in 98. Then in 2002, if you track the history of this, in 2002, US got afraid. Because since they deterred the frequency or they varied the frequency, because military is a very, very small market for any navigation system. So they thought their market will be disturbed. So in 2002, they have published one of the articles known as Essay, Selective Adaptability, in which, just to tell you the crux, they declared we are not varying any frequency, our system is 100% guaranteed, and so many things, so that their market is not disturbed. You track 98, you track 2000, you would be able to link both the things. That was the time ISRO decided that we will have our own satellites. And this project started in 2007. 200 scientists, they worked continuously for 8 years, and they made the first launch. They decided in 2006 They told we will do the first launch in 2015. I've seen those things practically, and they made it possible. So it was up to us after that, once they have done it, how to apply those things for our military applications as well as for the civil applications also. Second, the RS services. There are certain applications which requires high confidence. If I'm going to carry out certain attack on Pakistan, I require those codes to be secret. It should not known to be anybody. Even for the per se, if I'm not there in the mission, it will not be known to me. That is possible with your own regional navigation satellite system, nothing else. Otherwise, other GPS or Galileo, Europe, US, they will not give you these secret codes. So your accuracy is quite compromised. Gentlemen, coming to the third point, operation, we have a fleet of close to 1,100 aircraft. Out of those, 500 aircraft are of the legacy fleets. We are flying these aircrafts in northeastern region towards the China border, towards Kargil. So the real-time tracking, and most of the time what we do when we fly in certain operations, we switch off the GPS so that we are not being tracked. With our restricted services, we can continuously use this. And imagine a scenario, I have put off my GPS. If something happens to my aircraft, nobody would be able to track it to me. The same thing came in 2016 and 19, where unfortunately we lost 2 aircrafts, one in Andamans and one in Northeastern. That is one of the aircraft of Jorat region. Andamans, the aircraft could not be located till date. And the wreckages of the Jorat aircraft was recovered after 21 days, though we know the area is only 1.5 or 2 kilometers. So what is the advantage of this system is, it has a small circular error probable. That is, if I tell you somebody, if he or she is sitting over there, locate so-and-so guy, you have to search for 10-15 minutes. But if I tell the correct position, you would be able to hack it in 5 seconds or even lesser. So the area of search reduces drastically with the reduction in your circular error probable. That is one of the advantages. With a GPS, you have to search anything with an object which is flying at a speed of 400, 450 kilometers. You have to search something in the area of 2 kilometers. But with our own satellites, you have that area of 50 meters only or 60 meters. That search space has reduced almost by more than 10 times. In today's scenario, you have your GPS, which gives you the real-time tracking of the aircraft also. But right now, we are using the Inmarsat satellites. These are the British satellites. One is, you are taking the position from the GPS, that is getting processed somewhere in Singapore, and that is being displayed on the screen for right now, where we are monitoring the aircraft. So this comes at a delay of 35 or 36 seconds. By that time, my aircraft has traveled, the Su class or the fighter class of aircraft has traveled by 5 or 6 kilometers. With our own indigenized or the real-time tracking system, we are able to track our aircrafts every 4 seconds. Every 4 seconds, gentlemen. And this frequency can further be reduced to 1 second or 0.5 seconds. But the only thing is, it will eat that much amount of bandwidth, which we don't have a dearth of. High accuracy, we are using 2 frequencies, L5 and S. So what it does basically, it negates your ionospheric error, which is a main source of error in the GPS positioning or RNSS. With GPS, you are using currently only 1 frequency, that is L1. So the error is close to 60 or 70 meters. You may not realize it because you will see the object in front of you. Okay, cinema hall is just over there. But the error in the position is close to 60, 70 meters. So when you are dropping a bomb, when you are carrying a high confidential mission, even 1 meter becomes important to us. With this RNSS, even the normal user can have an accuracy of close to 5 to 6 meters. When I did my MTech in 2016, in the entire globe, these things were not tested on any of the aerial platforms. So all the discoveries are made by accident. So I was sitting with the director one of the days, Space Application Center. He asked, "Will you do the trials?" Well, sir, we can try. And as compared to the ground vehicles, we have to design certain receivers which are vary in your dynamics, your frequency, your update rate. So we took the modification and we took the maiden trials without getting the official clearances. There are certain people whom I have worked with, they have favored, but we have flown the sorties for 18 to 20 hours. We got very fruitful results. The thing would have been, I would have waited for 6-7 years. Okay, somebody will take an initiative. After 6-7 years, the aviation qualified antennas will come to the market and then I'll start using it. So I'll lose these 6-7 years. After 6-7 years, I'll discover, okay, these things are lagging in the present system, let's go ahead with the modification. So this is a kind of endless process. And gentlemen, let me tell you, these satellites have a life of 6 to 7 years only. Every 7th or 8th year, you have to launch a new satellite to maintain this constellation. Cost of every satellite, 500 crores. So you can imagine the amount of the time and the amount of the public money we are losing when we are losing every second of it. We did the trials with the RNSS. We compared the result with the GPS system. We have our aircraft installed with the GPS system also. So we took out that data also because it's an established system. We compared with the RNSS and the differential GPS system. What you call is the Gagan. Gagan is nothing like a GPS. It gives you the data. It gives you the position. We have certain error correcting station in India only. It corrects its position and feed to the users. But that will again not work if your GPS is off because the source of the data is GPS only. That is your differential GPS or the Gagan system is. We assess the data. Luckily, I was there when these satellites were getting launched. So minimum 4 to 5 satellites you require for your tracking or for the position determination. So we assessed the data with 5 satellites. After 6 months or 7 months, 7th one was launched. Then the 6th one and followed by the 7th one. With this, the most important, it is beneficial in the long term. In the world of anti-satellite weapon technology, your satellites can be shot down also. So for example, in the worst possible scenario, if your 6th or the 7th satellite is being shot down, would I be able to undertake my flying or not? Those data also we collected. Coming to the real-time aircraft tracking system. Just to explain you in a very simple way, these 7 satellites give you your position. For example, if I'm standing here, these 7 satellites are above me. It will determine my position. When I am flying, it will give me to the aircraft. Real-time tracking system, how it's get implemented, you transfer whatever coordinates you are receiving on the aircraft to the ground so that you can track me over the ground. That is a basic, very, very basic concept of real-time aircraft tracking. So it consists of basically 2 antennas. One will receive these coordinates. One is your terminal, which we have designed it. It will process the data, and through the other antenna, it will transfer the data to the another communication satellite, which will relay it to the ground. And this entire process takes place in less than 1 second. This is a pictorial form. These were the black one, what you can see is the antenna which will receive your coordinates, your latitude, longitude, and altitude. It will get processed by this two-way MSS terminal, and in turn, it will relay the white one, what you can see. It will give the data to that antenna, which in turn will transmit it to the GSAT-6 satellite, and I can see the blips on the ground like this, what has been indicated. These were the initial trials, what we carried out in a very, very rudimentary way, because in 2016, nobody has given us the clearances. Once we made the move, afterwards, these clearances were regularized We have also learned a lot of things in the process, but still I thank to all my seniors who have supported the cause so that we have not lost this 5 or 6 years. So we have put in these antennas. The black one on the left-hand side, it will receive the coordinates. This, the dotted one, it will process the data, and the white one will transmit the data to the another satellite so that I can see those coordinates flying on the ground. These were the actual positions where we have positioned these antennas. Gentlemen, as I covered, we have flown close to 72 hours. So we have tested your GPS system also, your differential GPS, and the performance of RNSS also. This is the summary of all the trials. In a very simple way, I'll tell. We have assessed the data of the satellites in terms of your how many satellites are available, what is the signal strength, what is the DOP value, dilution of precision. Briefly, I will cover it at a later stage. If you see the results obtained for the GPS RNSS system, the top row, it gives you a horizontal accuracy, how much left or right I am. So the accuracy has come close to 1 to 2 meters. The next row, if you see the GPS system, it has come close to 2.5 meters. But there is another, the world is of the global navigation satellite system right now. If you have 5 satellites, I have 5 satellites, let's combine it and do the business. So the receivers, what we are designing these days, it will have your GPS capability, because if I'm flying close to US region, I'll switch on to GPS because it will be more accurate over there. If I'm flying in the Indian region, I'll switch it to RNSS. It will be more accurate. Or I can combine these satellites. I can make it 5 plus 5, I can make it 10, and I can use it, where I'll have a better accuracy. So the third row gives you a much better results. And the last one is your differential GPS, that is your Gagan system. This is one of the clips. The red line indicates, this is on the top. We were, prior to the takeoff, we were aligning the aircraft. So we have turned around the aircraft to line it up. And the second is just when we landed. So the red line indicates the performance of your RNSS system, and the cyan line or the blue line indicates the performance of the GPS. If you can see here, it has some zigzag lines also. That is not basically possible. We cannot maneuver the aircraft like this. It has to follow a smooth course of action. So this is where the position went wrong. After landing also, hardly we vary the runway center line by 1.5 meters. It is showing us the variation of close to 10 meters. Whereas your own RNSS system has shown the correct results or the actual results. The dilution of precision. In very simple terms, it is the geometry of the satellites, what it makes with respect to the user. The better is the geometry, the better is the position accuracy. And the value is ideal is close to 1. So this parameter is being utilized for your position calculation error. So for the RNSS system, we found this value close to 3.2. These sudden spikes are basically when we were changing the attitude of the aircraft. Another field of interest for the engineers or even for the marketing people here. Before carrying out the field trials, we have imported some of the simulators from abroad, costing close to 200, 300, 2 crores or 3 crores. This simulator does a function. You put an input of the field or the airfield where you are going to fly, the temperatures, everything. It will give you that DOP value. But it is a theoretical one. Once we fly, you can compare the results. So this is an indigenization, what we are looking in the current scenario, the indigenization of these simulators. Then the other aspect is your signal strength. For the GPS or any navigational system, your signals are very, very weak. If you lose the signal, you will lose the coordinates. So performance was found quite satisfactory over there. Continuous availability. You see here the continuous availability of 7 satellites were there throughout the period of operations. So better is the number of satellites, better is the position accuracy. This is where the global navigation system is coming into operation. Here we have combined the satellites of GPS and the RNSS system also. So if you see, the average number of satellites on the right-hand graph is close to 17 to 18. That is how the results were better. Coming to the advantages of our system, as we have proven the better horizontal and vertical position accuracy, drastic reduction in the circular error probable, that is your search area, which is quite critical or vital in the military operations. We can program the data in case we want to increase the update rate. Okay, if 10 aircraft, the fighters are flying in the enemy territory, I want an update every 0.5 seconds, not 4 seconds. I can reprogram that data rate so that my aircrafts are visible on the screen, and accordingly we can take the calls. Restricted services, we have tested, and it has come out good. Anti-jamming and spoofing. Since you are operating in 2 bands, that is L5 and S, these are the 2 extreme bands. In today's scenario, in GPS, if you want to jam, you just require a 5-watt jammer because you know the frequency, you know the power, and people have done it. They have jammed the system and they have spoofed. By spoofing, you means you feed in the wrong coordinates to a person, he will take it right. Okay, these are the coordinates, and I'm going correct. That is a word or the term used as spoofing. RNSS application, these 7 satellites have been launched, and the number of applications are there. The first is your position determination, which we have derived in. The second is aircraft real-time tracking system. And the remaining 3 applications still we are working at. I'll be covering in brief. The strategic messaging is like when you don't have a communication on the aircraft. For example, if I'm sitting on the ground, my RT is jammed, I'm flying, and if I want to give you certain instructions from the ground, my VHF is jammed, my high frequencies are jammed. At that point of time, the strategic messaging can be displayed on the cockpit screen. Okay, you disperse, you continue with the mission, you abort the missions. There will be customized messages, what we are working at right now. ADSB, all the ATCs, whenever you go to any airport next time, just have a look. There are primary and the secondary radars which are guiding your aircrafts. The primary is like it works on the reflections, and secondary is you interrogate certain aircraft, it will reply to you, okay, I am so and so. By the use of these satellites, you can let go your primary and the secondary radars in the future. You are receiving your coordinates on the aircraft, directly you can transmit those coordinates to the ATC. So the major juncture of primary and secondary radars can be let go. We can get rid of, because these systems, they have become old, requires a lot of maintenance. Another application, Global Aeronautical Distress Safety System. Most of you must have been aware of MH370, which happened in 2014, where the aircraft could not be recovered till date. So many theories came out of it. The last position, maybe some people say the pilot has switched off the RT because it was a kind of suicidal. You just read about MH370. It will give you a plethora of material on that. This system, basically, even if the pilot or the crew does not transmit its position, it will transmit by itself every 10 seconds, every 1 minute, every 10 minutes, depending upon the kind of emergency, it will automatically transmit, okay, I'm okay, these are my last coordinates. So it does not require any human interference to give your coordinates, so that the search and the rescue missions can be carried out accordingly. Coming to the last or second last slide, I'll say. The project status, we have flown close to 72 hours in last, we have carried out these trials for last 5.5 years. So we have flown in Kargil, towards close to the northeastern region, southwestern, every part of India we have covered up. So what we found, the accuracy was good, restricted services has been checked. And with ISRO, we have prepared the design document. And right now, we are developing the first prototype in one of the major bases of Indian Air Force. With these prototypes, we will be flying our first aircraft in the month of May or June. So right now, there are 2 companies which are bidding for it. In today's scenario, you have GPS, where over lakhs of manufacturers are there. Ladies and gentlemen, just see from the business potential also. If you participate in this technology, right now only 2 companies are working. In the future, you have your military aircrafts, civil aircrafts, Army, Navy, Air Force, civil applications. Everybody will be using the RNSS system. So the students who are especially in their final year, planning to start up their own setups, this is one of the viable fields which you can look into. This is where we are going to install the antennas, the 2 antennas what I was talking about. This is the 2D view. And there are some internal structures, modification, what we are going to carry it out, just to give you a glimpse of it. Conclusion, now we are working towards making a portable set. There are certain aircrafts in India which you can modify, you have the authority. But the new inductions like C-17, C-130, Hercules which are going to come up, you don't have the authority. You have to approach the OEM which charge 10 times of the amount. So we are trying to develop a portable sets also. So it can be placed, it increases the interoperability. I'll make 200 sets and I'll place it in any of the aircraft. So this is the project which is currently going on. We are trying to integrate the flight data recorder parameters. Once you lose any aircraft, the first thing you look for the black box, what you have heard of, ki black box dhoondo, because it contains all your critical parameters, your flight controls, your engine parameters. So likewise, when you are transmitting the position, we are planning to transmit these critical parameters 8 to 10 after every 1 or 2 minutes, so that you need not to search for your flight data recorders also. Whatever positioning we are determining these days, still we are not using our own maps. We are using the Google Maps. What Sir has brought out in his, the last speaker, what Sir has told, these GPS maps does not recognize your line of actual control. This is Pakistan occupied India, but your own indigenized map very well identify these things. And these maps have been designed by the ISRO. So the expression of the interest for getting the devices with the Bhuvan maps, we are going to float very, very shortly. And anybody who is interested in this, they can approach me. We will tell you how to approach air headquarters, how to look for these things, what we are looking for. Very simple. It may take time. But once you experience, being in the Air Force, it took me 6.5 years to implement this project. But it comes up. So especially for the youngsters like you, this is a new technology. Please pitch into this. So use of indigenized map, known as the Bhuvan maps, which has been developed by the ISRO. Highly accurate maps. This is what we are trying to get into our display systems. The government of India is planning to launch their 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th satellite by 2025 or 26. So this will make our system from regional to the global, like same as the GPS, BIDU, or the Galileo systems. So the possibilities I wanted to say are endless into this field. And this is a major big push. Your own Indian industries are working into it. Your ISRO department, Air Force department, your own maps. Nothing has been outsourced. So this is a big push to the Make in India project also. So what I request, if you participate in this, or in case you participate in any of the development project, it will be a big boost for the defense of the armed forces. With this, I have finished. And any questions, I'm ready to answer. And my apologies, like if it went on the technical side to some extent, but this is the simplest possible way. We can condense our work of 6.5 or 7 years into the simplest possible way.
Saurabh sir, is there any way people can send you questions via, I don't know, anywhere? That's because the next session is a long panel discussion.
Not a
so-
problem, ma'am. I'm available. The numbers are there. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. I'm on WhatsApp and one of my numbers, so you can call me up directly also. Not a problem, please.
Right. Thank you so much for that, Saurabh sir. Of course, as you said, it was a tad bit technical, but quite an interesting thing for many of us who are very keen to understand more about the defense forces and the technology integration as a part of it. I would like to call Kirti Malkani ji, Assistant Professor at UID, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
I would like to thank Wing Commander Saurabh Singh Chauhan from the Indian Air Force for sharing facts about IRNSS as part of the real-time aircraft navigation system. It is indeed an eye-opener to know how important and necessary it is to have our own indigenous navigation system for national security. The detailed information shared by you motivates all our young designers and scholars to develop new interventions for national security. Thank you, sir, for your valuable time.
Thank you, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, let's kindly hear it for Wing Commander Saurabh Chauhan sir. Thank you so much, Saurabh sir. Team ADW, could you help clear up and set up for the panel discussion? Please allow us about 5 minutes while we set up for the much-awaited panel discussion. I request all the panelists to please go backstage. Team ADW, the rest of the volunteers, could you kindly escort our panelists? Dear audience member, I request all of you to please come in front so that at least it looks nice from here. I have no other reason, yeah? You do this, but you never come in front. Please come in front. The guy in the green shirt who's squeezing inside so that I don't see you, why don't you come in front? Those who are in the last row, why don't you all come in front? Ma'am, yeah, and you can use the white seats, I mean. ADW, hi, I know you're tired, I'm so sorry. Can you just ask them, don't stand up, it's okay, ask them to come in front, no? This side. Just jump over that barrier and come in front. Oi, oi. Team ADW, show of hands. Are our panelists ready backside? Will you just let me know so I can call them? Team ADW, I cannot see anybody. Are they all there? So we can start. Is everybody there? Okay, so the last or the closing discussion, a lovely, lively panel discussion for the Ahmedabad Design Week version 3. And yeah, we see a lot of people doing social distancing right now. But without further delay, end of day, this is what happens. You start cracking up. Kindly put your hands together for our esteemed panelists. The discussion is going to be around defense R&D in India, design for 2050, the road ahead. Can we please have a huge round of applause as I request all our panelists to start walking towards the seat. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, audience members, feel free to come in front so that it looks a little cozy. Keep the applause going, ladies and gentlemen, for our amazing panelists as part of the last session for day one, Ahmedabad Design Week. Please come, sir. We'll introduce all of you as soon as you're on together on the stage. Let's keep hearing it for all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. This panel discussion is going to be moderated by Rear Admiral R.K. Sharawat, sir. So I know it's going to be one engaging, animated, and brilliant discussion. Could we have the rest of the panelists as well? So we can start with the... Okay, he's on his way, no problem. With the felicitation. जी बिल्कुल आइए ना sir. Let's keep hearing it for them, ladies and gentlemen. Our last discussion for the day, and I know that it's going to be extremely energetic as soon as this all-male panel takes over today. Yeah, those are my students. But without further delay, let's start with the felicitation process. I'm going to go in quick order, like a roll call, so please apologize so that we have enough time for all of you to talk. We're going to start with felicitating Lieutenant General B.S. Jaswal, sir. I request Colonel Surajit Bose, sir, to kindly felicitate him with a stole and a veena. Taliyan, taliyan, guys, taliyan bati rehni chahiye. That's the new theme of the day. Let's keep these patient, they have been extremely patient. We already had a chance of listening to Jaswal, sir, and we are extremely looking forward and eager. Welcome, Jaswal, sir. I request Shambihari Prajapati ji to kindly felicitate Major General A.K. Channa with a stole and a veena. Ladies and gentlemen, Major General A.K. Channa, sir. I request Kishori ma'am to felicitate Dr. Greg with a stole and a memento. Kishori ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Greg Autry. I request Soumya Bandyopadhyay and Mukesh Singh ji to kindly felicitate Colonel Hariharan Shankar with a stole and a veena. I request Kishori ma'am once again and Harish sir to felicitate Leo Peter Charles sir with a stole and a veena. Harish sir? Yes. Harish sir. I request Brajesh ji and Shyam Bihari ji once again to felicitate Captain Ajes ji with a stole and a veena. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last session. Let's keep the energy levels going up a bit. And last but not the least, the man who's going to be moderating this entire session, keeping us on our hooks for the next hour or so. And we're looking forward to an extremely animated, robust discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the moderator for this amazing panel, Rear Admiral R.K. Sharawat, sir. Could I please ask Soumya ji and Mukesh, sir, to felicitate sir with a veena and a stole, please. Thank you so much, faculty members and team UID for this. Before we start, there's an introduction video of all the panelists. It's not long, so we're going to play that, and then it's going to be over to you, sir. Could you please have we've made a video for the panel. So team Innovation, Parth, can you please play the video? Let's keep applauding. Woo. This is the use of technology for quick introduction so that I don't have much to talk and waste time, because a lot of us are going to be trickling in, so I hope that's okay. People are just trickling in, sir. So I think without further delay, I'm going to hand over the entire podium to you. Let us know if you need any more mics, anything. My entire team is around. So it's over to you for the panel discussion. Defense R&D in India, Design for 2050, the road ahead.
Thank you for this introduction. Let me at the outset thank the university for inviting me for this session and to moderate this panel discussion. But before that, I think the organizers have done exceedingly well in arranging on this platform such a luminaries today. I think we are all of you, the students in particular, are so fortunate that you will have an opportunity to listen to such senior people who have seen and done all that on this platform today. So, in fact, it is my singular honor as that I'll be and ask questions from such luminaries. I would like to say from my side, before I really ask questions, how each one of them has done well and what they are doing, before, so that you get the perspective. I'll go in the sequence in which the panelists are listed in the brochure. So first I will like to ask a few questions from General Jaswal. Sir, it is indeed, I think once again, I would like to thank you for sparing time. Now, I'd like to say something more about General Jaswal, because in the army, I think one what aspires for is to be the army commander or the combat commander, but there are many commands. So, General Jaswal has been, as it was introduced, the Commander-in-Chief, GOC-in-C of the Northern Command. And before that, not only that, he was also GOC-in-C or RTREC, which is the training command of the Army, which is equally important, prestigious. And of course, as you know, training is most important for any combat arm. And training encompasses everything. So it is not that it is not a combat, it is everything. So I would like to say he has seen everything that required to be, and he has done everything that required to be done in the army, and we are really fortunate that he is here amongst us. Now, sir, as the topic is, I had devised this topic. I thought it is really good that in front of all the audience, the youngsters, we share with them what the country is going to be in the coming decades. And this is a technology, this is a design seminar, so something related to that. So first, sir, I would like to ask that we have seen the army since the 1970s, till today you are still seeing. So what kind of transformation you have observed in all these years? That is number one. And what role has technology played in this transformation? And how it is going to happen in the coming decades? If with your experience, if you could just summarize in as much detail as possible, we have got time, sir, we shall be enlightened.
Good evening. Great pleasure sharing with such esteemed panelists and the August gathering. A great privilege for me. I would like to share a fact in life. When I was retiring, we have a medical board at the end of it, and the ENT specialist, he said, sir, there is some amount of loss of hearing, so should we make you a category? I said, no way. The Army commander doesn't go back with a category. I said, by the way, what kind of frequency is not suiting my ears? He says, it is so-and-so frequency, that of the ladies. I said, that's very good news. I can withstand the nagging of my wife. So some of the questions probably I'll have to again ask depending on the mic. So you have said that what I've seen so far. Yeah, okay. I got the transformation from mine. I served for 40 years. And I also happen to be son of an army officer. So I saw right from my childhood the way things were taking place. And in the 40 years, once I culminated on to my service career, I realized 2-3 things are very important. And this is how, touchwood, at the strategic level, the transformation did take place. One, any kind of nuances that we plan to bring about changes in our equipment, in our strategy, that all depends on threat analysis. What exactly is the threat analysis? I will not name the government, it's a political statement. In 57, there was a project called Project Jyoti, which was that the army is not doing anything, फालतू का पैसा खा रहे, उनसे projects बनवाओ, construction करवाओ. This is one philosophy, because we did not read the threat that time. Came 62, we realized how unprepared we were. The threat emerged. So 65, we were better prepared. And just to share with you all, by the time we graduated on to 71, we had done a lot of improvement. And just to quote to you, not only in the army, but transformation within the country, which affected the army. For instance, it was on 17th of August, 1971, that Mrs. Gandhi, she signed a treaty with Russia, and Russia sent its nuclear submarines to the Bay of Bengal, and the 7th Fleet went back because of that. So here the transformation was synergy between the armed forces as also the political leadership. There was a flotilla of the Britishers which was coming. There were submarines. Again, I mean, the Rear Admiral would know the story which I'm telling. And they went back from there. So now the transformation was taking place between the armed forces as also the political masters. 71, we had a big victory. I was commissioned in 70 December. But after we had won, our victory, in a way, came in our way. We thought of the army to be too strong. We can't deal with situations. So the progression which was taking place, the transformation, and sir, you've used a very fine word, transformation, that was taking place, did not take place probably at the same pitch. But all the strategists who are there, the think tanks, they keep making prophecies, and these prophecies these days become defunct. Reason is, I mean, no one knew that Russia and Ukraine, you will end up in this kind of a situation. What will happen between America and Pakistan? Why India has suddenly become important to US? So now the think tank, which is there, they make prophecies they fully well know is going to, may become rather defunct. But yet, we start preparing. Chinese, we started realizing that the Chinese cannot be trusted. Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, they did that. I was commanding 4 Corps, which looks after Arunachal. As a corps commander, there were deficiencies of roads, infrastructure, everything. And here the Chinese were trying to befriend us. Prophecies went defunct. They suddenly changed. And that is the time we were crying hoarse. Sorry, the infrastructure has to develop. Our defenses really came up. I can't share a military secret, but I can just say there was a war game which I had done. And I had said immediate accretion of this area is not done, you shall lose coming. We got 2 divisions, accretions in that area. So the military commanders, they kept perceiving the threat as it was emerging. The government, they came on board, and today we have forces, we have got everything. Weapon systems, I mean, it's an open secret. We have been rather slow in our ability to arm the forces the way they should be. But now, as the prophecies are changing, we are armed. And with this philosophy, which is coming up, because the punchline is, we were importing most of the equipment. The import bill was so high that we could hardly buy capital equipment. So our capability part of it was reduced. Now with this philosophy coming up of Atmanirbhar, we should be able to increase our capability, think more on scientific lines, have what we want, because we shall have money to buy or manufacture at not at a prohibitive cost, but at an affordable cost. So this is the way the paces of transformation is going on. I hope I have answered you, sir.
Thank you, sir, for this very wide encompassing question and wide encompassing answer, sir. I had wanted to ask a question on the impact of Make in India Atmanirbhar, but you have covered that as well. So I'll come back to you, sir, later and seek your views about the impact of technology that has played in the all spheres of army, but particularly in combat. So I'll come back to you, sir, with this question, sir. I will now move on to General Chandan to ask him a few questions. Now, General Chandan, I'll introduce him as well. He is the force behind setting up of Army Design Bureau. I think it would have been a very, very challenging job. And just to share with you, I did a National Defense College course, NDC 46, and we had many, you know, NDC has got a large number of army officers from all arms and services, and many of them rose to become chief and vice chief, etc. And since then, they used to ask me, because I was in the field of shipbuilding, we had done, what can army do to make progress in the field of design? So, in fact, Campos was very close to me, and he used to talk to me often that what I think during his time, a lot of impetus was given to set up Army Design Bureau. So he has been instrumental in that. He has been even in the Export Promotion Council, where he was representing the army, and very, very important role that he has. And he is also very actively involved in IDEX, which is the recent initiative of the government to help out private sector, and particularly the startups. So now this is the introduction. So with this, I would like to ask some question, General. Can you tell something about the role of the Army Design Bureau, and what have been their thrust area, what has been achieved so far? If you could answer.
Well, very good evening, and thank you so much for the introduction, sir. It's a great honor to be in a panel with my army commander, and you know, I really feel he has actually put the entire thing in perspective. I will just take what Admiral Sherawat asked and a little beyond that, and I'll just speak about, you know, why we need such organizations, why we need each one of you to actually become a defender of India. I noticed that Annie has a friend in the build-up to this, which is called DOI, Defender of India. And I personally feel that each one of you, especially the kids sitting at the back, are all part of the security establishment as we move forward. In some way or the other, each one is contributing. So let me start at the top. You see, warfare has been evolving over the years. Earlier, the ladai was something called evolutionary. So there were bows and arrows. So earlier we fought with swords, and somebody had invented the shield. Then there were bows and arrows, so somebody invented the armor. Then people invented the rifle. Then a trench was invented. Trench was invented, then tank was invented. Tank was invented, then pillbox was invented. And like that, it kept evolving. You can see the same thing in air, you can see the same thing at sea. It's always been evolutionary. That was how warfare came about. When warfare is evolutionary in nature, I hope I'm not getting too complicated. When warfare is evolutionary in nature, the military leader takes control and actually directs the evolution of warfare. So the doctrine part actually is predominant, and doctrine employs technology into warfare. Then around the 90s, we started talking of revolution in military affairs, revolutionary warfare. Now what happens is, the doctrine itself doesn't remain supreme, but it gets guided by technology. So technology starts playing a more dominant role in the system. But both evolutionary warfare and revolutionary warfare, both of them are essentially industrial age concepts. Big tanks, big guns, lot of industry. I mean, warfare itself is an industry. There's a big defense industrial complex which is supporting the war effort, etc. Today we have entered an era of disruptive warfare. In this, what is happening is doctrines and all are actually left far behind. Technologies very quickly kind of dictating the way we go. Now, once this happens, 3-4 things happen. The first thing that happens is that war is no longer fought on the borders, it is on everybody's doorstep. That is why each one of us is a warrior from when technology comes in. Secondly, war does not remain physical anymore, it becomes cyber-physical. It goes into virtue-physical domains. If somebody attacks somebody's boat somewhere or a warship somewhere, the response may not be, by attacking a warship, it may be actually jamming his banking system or something. So you are responding, you're freely switching between virtual and physical domains. So this is the second thing that happens. And the third thing that happens is that there is a huge amount of advantage that you get purely out of technology. So you may be a country with crores and crores of rupees of equipment, but if somebody has a better technology, he is able to be at par. In military parlance, the newly found vocabulary, this is known as asymmetric equalities. I mean, it's a little technical, but I'll just try to say. So what happens today is, today's army will benefit from the effort of each one of you. If anybody has a bright idea, if anybody has a bright spark, if anybody has any good thing that you can come up with, it can actually very quickly get realized and converted into a decisive weapon at war. And therefore a need was felt that if an Indian mind can head the DARPA, it can head the DIUX. If in the NASA space mission, if you read the list, 50% of the people are Indian origin. If Indians can head everywhere, it is this huge resource that needs to be harnessed. And that is where I actually started. I am going to do a little bit of I normally don't, but I will. When I started this idea, it was laughable. Because it started at a time probably which was a little ahead of, the time. I started this whole Army Design Bureau from one room. I actually didn't get a room. I sat in my PA's room and started it. But today, it's actually a matter of pride, the way we are reaching out and getting the entire brains and the entire resources of this country, trying to put it together. It is still a job in progress. It will take a lot of time to happen. But I want to just kind of conclude with just 2 small messages. Warfare is no longer the domain of few. It is no longer something that is fought at the borders. And if we have to make India Atmanirbhar, every one of us sitting in this room is a soldier who has got the ability and the capacity to contribute to the national war effort. We will probably be just the people who deliver it at the decisive point. Thank you. Does that answer the questions?
You have answered. I just thought for the audience, for students over here, that what is Army Design Bureau doing at this moment? And then I'll ask more questions.
Okay, sir. So, adding, now taking off from where I left, so when we realized that we need to involve everybody into the national war effort, we created this organization. And the task of this organization was firstly to reach out to a much larger pool of, intellect and capabilities and capacities to put across the problems that are faced with the army, to actually take promising people out into the field and give them an operational perspective, to people who are into manufacture, into designing, etc., to take them to the equipments and give them an equipment perspective, to actually fund small efforts here and there, and also to mentor. Once you give money, you just kind of don't, you also sit there. It's like building a house. The moment you give some contractor money, you visit that site every day. So that mentorship to make sure that it is being put in the right place. I will only talk about 2 points from here, the funding and the perspective. For operational perspective, anybody has a good idea. Today we are open. We can take you down to an operational area and say you stay there for 5 days and get a feel of how it is to go into ambush, how it is to go to a particular, be living in a DCB or in a bunker, and come back and design something for us which will, be much better than what we have. One. So we give an operational perspective. If you have some site or something, you don't have a rifle, then we take you out, give you the equipment so that you can try out your little bit of a sub piece. So we give an equipment perspective. And lastly, funding is happening at various levels. The army has its own funds, which Sir had been controlling as GOC&C RTRAC. It's called the Army Technology Board. Then there are funds which are parked at the ministerial level. Those are called Technology Development Fund. I want to clarify, these are ministerial funds. The DRDO manages them. It is not a DRDO fund. It is a ministerial fund. Only the management is with them. And then we decided that even these two funds are since being held and they are not sufficient enough. Why not throw it out open? So we started the IDEX challenge. So these are funds that are open to anybody. You just have to log on to the site and kind of put your idea through. And there are chances, if it's a good idea, that it will move forward. So these are the ways in which we put the funding across. So the ADB has basically become a facilitator. It helps you give an operational perspective, an equipment perspective. It funds you. And once you start rolling on something, then it also puts a team which mentors till the time you actually make a business out of the product.
Thank you, Jachanda. Now, you mentioned about IDEX right now. Can you throw some more light on that? Because that should be very interesting to the young audience, because it is about startups and what kind of funding and what kind of encouragement the present government is giving. I think all of you should know that this government is providing so much of trust to young entrepreneurs by way of funding, etc., and motivating, and they are creating so many channels to do that. So IDEX is one such forum, particularly for Ministry of Defense, and if you could throw some more light, few more minutes on that, that would be beneficial to the audience.
Okay. So the IDEX is loosely modeled. I'll just explain very briefly that you see the American establishment, the US establishment does not, it's largely driven by R&D. The military industrial complex, but they don't have large labs, etc. They allow R&D to happen in the private space. So they have facilitators. So for programs which they want to launch, they have something called a DARPA. So they say we want to make the next generation tank. They build out something and they tell DARPA to throw it out, and a challenge is, or that next generation tank is thrown out to the public. The DARPA becomes a repository where interaction happens. But that happens on what we want. Sometimes we just throw challenges for technologies which are 10, 15 years hence, or something that you may have a good idea that we don't. So we don't want to lose on that. For that, they have something called DIUX. So while the ADBs, Naval Design Bureaus, etc., the VESI, the Air Force Board, all these are in the domain of what is loosely the DARPA. We actually put our requirements out. The IDEX is we put challenges out. We actually put something that we don't need today, we need tomorrow, or we put things out in the direction in which the trajectory of technology is heading. Or we also encourage you to give suo moto, whatever you think, please throw it at us. If you win the challenge, there are suo moto challenges as well, you get a government funding of 1.5 CR, as well as mentorship of the user directorate who will guide you, help you, facilitate you in every manner to build a product. And now the IDEX is also plugged into the procurement system, so there will be a minimum order at the end of the IDEX challenge, which is a sustainable number. So at least when you invest yourself, that money will kind of help you kickstart a business. IDEX is also plugged into the exports in some manner. We give you a license and a permission to export. So the moment you build something, some amount we will pick up, certify it, and also give you all the facilitation for exporting it abroad.
Thank you, General Charna. In fact, if time permits, I'll come back to you because this was my last question about exports, but which you briefly mentioned. But I'll come back to you for this question if time permits. Gentlemen, now I'll move straight away from the army battlefield to now space. And we have the honor of having our great friend from the US. We have got Dr. Greg Autry sitting on my right. He is the clinical professor of space leadership, policy and business at the Arizona State University. And he was also a former White House liaison at NASA. So his credentials are impressive. In fact, if I start speaking about the profile of all my panelists, I think I'll need 2 hours only for that. That much of work they have done. So Dr. Autry is also such an illustrious figure. And on behalf of all of you, I must welcome him because he has traveled 7 seas and come here to participate in this panel discussion. Thank you very much, Doctor. Now, the question that I would like to ask him is, see, a lot of things are happening at the international level. The world is changing, actually. The world has become very dynamic, particularly after the Cold War era. And it is no longer the Cold War finished, but actually the war is still going on in all spheres of the world. So from this perspective, I'd like to ask how does he see the India-US relationship in the scenario that we have today? Then how does the US look at India as a technology center, and even as an investment destination, because we would like to have more investment, which is where the money for the youngsters can come. So these are the questions from him. And of course, related to that is, because he's from the field of space, how does he see the potential of Indo-US cooperation in the field of space? These are the questions. If you could throw some light on this, Dr. Autry.
Thank you so much, Admiral. I greatly appreciate it. I want to thank the organizers for allowing me to be the token foreigner here. I've enjoyed my day yesterday in Ahmedabad. It's a lovely city. I also want to congratulate all you for being here. It's great to see a room full of young people that are interested in hearing about their nation's national security and seeing the leaders of their nation step up and ask for participation for the next generation. That's a wonderfully functional relationship that I don't always see, honestly, in universities in the United States. It was also interesting to see the last speaker who talked about your positioning and navigation and timing system being developed domestically. That's a great thing. The more GPS-enabled sort of systems that we have globally, the better for everybody in the world to have that redundancy. And for your country to develop technologies domestically, we'll have paybacks that you don't realize. We hope, for instance, that any of the new weapon systems you develop are never used, right? I look at many of the things the United States invested in during the Cold War, and thank God that we never used them, right? But the money that we spent on solving big engineering problems gave us things like the internet. It gave us the global positioning system. The things that we developed during World War II gave us jet travel, space travel, microwave ovens, things that have changed the lives of people all over the world for the better, right? So when you solve these big design and engineering problems for the military, again, I hope maybe you don't have to use them. In fact, the better the systems are that you develop, the least likely you will have to use them, because strength deters aggression, whereas weakness invites it. Regarding the U.S.-Indian relationship, this is a dynamic and changing environment. As the General mentioned, it was just back in the 1970s that India was leveraging the Soviet Union against the United States, and today I think we see a situation that is very different, and I hope positive for both of our countries. Now, I'm only speaking for myself, of course, but I would say that if you look at what's happening in the world today, and in the last year in particular, it's very clear that the United States won the Cold War, but we have lost the peace. There was a lot of talk back in the 1990s after the collapse of the Soviet Union about how important it was to win the peace. And my country has completely failed at that task. What happened in Afghanistan and what's happening in the Ukraine are a national embarrassment from my perspective. That said, we see a whole new alignment happening, and we begin to wonder how we got to this place in U.S. policy, and a lot of it had to do with our investing ourselves in the wrong partnerships. Notably, we invested a great deal of time, money, capital, and technology in helping China become the country that it is today. And that was a huge mistake. As the other speaker noted, basically they can't be trusted. Everybody in the world's figured this out. I wrote a book a decade ago called Death by China, saying you can't trust these folks. You know, that's become apparent. But we did that. We invested in other countries that didn't really have our back or share our mutual interest in peace, democracy, and in basically the principles of modern liberalism. So I think there's a much more natural connection between the United States and India that we're going to have to realize is important. Then there's some very practical matters. You mentioned technology. So I can tell you, being at U.S. universities, we definitely consider India to be a center of technology, innovation, and development, and we consider you to be a brain trust. You send us your best and your brightest routinely to our universities, where they make very significant contributions, notably in computer science in particular. So that we're very aware of. I think we're going to see more leveraging that, and we'd much rather, I believe, have that relationship than the dysfunctional relationship that we've had with China. Manufacturing is an important thing too. We have in the U.S. outsourced what was formerly the workshop of the world to China, and that's turned out to be a huge mistake because we've empowered an adversary, and we've made ourselves dependent on a political ideology that we can't support. So we need another manufacturing partner. India is, I believe, a natural opportunity there for us. And the final question, when they all sort of integrate, is on space, which is the one that interests me the most. So I've been very excited to see what ISRO is doing, what India is doing with their civil space program. This has been just amazing to watch. You guys have achieved so much so quickly for so little, frankly. Economically, India's efforts in space exploration on the civil side have been astounding and impressing everybody in the world. Guess what? The US needs a new partner in space. Frankly, the Europeans need a new partner in space. We've got the International Space Station up there. I'm sure that you might have seen it go overhead at night. It's often the brightest object in the sky, and I think one of the most amazing things that humanity has ever achieved. $130-something billion was spent on that program. Of that, $100 billion was US money. The Russians contributed modules and they provided support, but in reality, the United States paid for most of the Russian effort on that. And the Russians have, guess what? Turned out not to be reliable partners, because once again, we tried to invest ourselves in working with people who didn't share our fundamental national principles, and it turned out that they weren't going to change. So I don't know if you saw just yesterday, Dmitry Rogozin, the head of Roscosmos, the Russian National Space Agency, announced that, or threatened basically, that Russia would remove its support from the International Space Station, which includes the system to reboost it and keep the station in orbit. And he explicitly said that the station could fall out of the sky, fall out of orbit and kill people in the United States, or he even explicitly said perhaps it can fall on India. And he thought that was funny, or a way to blame the United States for that problem. So clearly the U.S. needs a new partner in civil space. I think there's a lot of great countries stepping up to contribute. Japan, South Korea, Taiwan are all doing exciting things in space, but more than any other country, I think India is a natural partner. It's one of the few countries that is developing a domestic human spaceflight program, which will be super important. I, as somebody who helped put together the U.S.'s current plans in space, including returning to the moon, would love to see India join the Artemis Accords, which is the US-based set of bilateral agreements with 15 other nations currently to return to the moon and to set standards for operating on the moon and working with the resources that are available on the moon to return value to everybody on Earth. So, in my opinion, I think that we have a really unique opportunity to recognize that we have practical mutual interests that can benefit each other, and in general we have a shared global perspective and ideology that should have been working together more closely than it has been, and I would hope to see more of that in the future.
Thank you, Doctor. Excellent summary of what is it. If I could quickly ask one more small side question. As an American, what is your assessment of shift in manufacturing from China to India? Do you see it happening? You know the Indian system, our drawbacks also of Indian system. At the same time, China is no longer as attractive as it used to be. So is there a positive change you feel in this side, shift in manufacturing from China to India?
I can tell you that my family thinks I'm kind of crazy because I've been spending the last decade and a half trying to not buy anything from China. So I'm actually wearing a suit made in the United States, a tie made in the United States, shoes that are made in the United States. Cost me a lot of money. I spend a lot of time in stores looking at the labels and trying not to buy anything from China. And I do make a point of often being very happy when I find something made from India. Occasionally I find something from Vietnam and it's like, oh, it's a terrible communist dictatorship, but at least it doesn't have nuclear missiles pointed at me, so I'll buy that, right? But I do think that Americans, both at a consumer level and more importantly at an investment level, are looking for a solution other than China, because it's become very apparent that not only can you not trust the Chinese government globally, but unfortunately you can't trust them individually as investors or companies, because they steal your intellectual property, they violate the contracts that they'd sign. The contracts that you sign are never really enforceable in China, and on top of that, there are environmental problems, all sorts of other issues. Now, to be honest though, China gets stuff done. having a dictatorship that doesn't care about what its people think is very, very effective in doing large engineering projects and making sure that factories get built and making sure that the interest of their companies are represented in global institutions. So they corrupt multilateral organizations like the World Health Organization, the Olympic Committee, the World Trade Organization. That's hard to counter even if you're a very populous country like India, because you have a democracy, right? And you have to consider the interest of all of your people, and your policies change when your government changes, and the same issue we have. But I do think we're going there. I think there's an excitement from the investment community and from companies that I work with to find ways to leverage what we hope will be a renaissance in U.S.-India relationships, and manufacturing will be a huge portion of that. I personally, if I could buy an iPhone that was made in India, I'd pay $100 more for that. I absolutely would.
Thank you very much, Dr. Autry. Now let me see the list. Yeah, I am supposed to have Dr. Sudhir Mishra, who has been the ex-boss of BrahMos, but unfortunately has not been able to come. But I must speak about him just for the sake of completeness. Audience must know what is the program and what is the role of Dr. Sudhir Mishra. Now, BrahMos program is one of the most successful program of a joint venture between two nations. BrahMos means Brahmaputra River and Moskova River. That is how they represent Indo-Russian relationships. Although I have a friend, Dr. Autry, sitting next to me, an American, but that's the beauty of India and the diplomatic relations that we have. But it might change soon, I think, the way things are happening. But it is passed I think during the 90s and in the beginning of this century, this thing was conceived. And India has produced very, very successfully certain cruise missiles as a joint venture. So BrahMos it was first, I know about it because I was also part of the process when it was happening. And it has been first introduced in the Indian Navy as a cruise missile. It is already there, some of the ships that have been produced in India at Mazagon Dock, where I was the chairman. It was happening at that point in time. So I know it is a very successful program. It is unfortunate that Dr. Sudhir Mishra for whatever reason has not been able to come. He was ex-CEO, and I would have liked to ask him what are the challenges of steering such a program. Nonetheless, I just wanted to share that such a program exists. It's called BrahMos. It is a joint venture. It is not a government organization. It is an entity. It is a venture of DRDO in which we have the 51% share and Russian Federation has got 49% share. It's an important program. Whenever you get to know, please read about it. I'll move on now to the next panelist on our panel is Colonel Harihan Shankar. Colonel Harihan Shankar, his credentials are equally impressive. And he has been, although he is a colonel, so we think that he'll know more about the battle on the ground, but his specialization has been in the field of aerospace. He has got tremendous credentials, and I admit that I did not know about him till the time I got to find out who the other panelists are. I wanted to know. So that's how I had the pleasure of interacting with him, and he was very proactive, which shows why he is what he is today, where he is. So I will not speak about his individual accomplishments. I'll ask him a few questions because he belongs to the field of aerospace. So may I ask, Colonel, some questions from you? The first one is, for the sake of audience, what are the major aerospace organizations in India, and how do they compare with the world? I'm happy that I have got Dr. Autry sitting next to me, so he'll be listening to me very carefully.
So good evening, sir. Thank you for that very kind introduction, and again, thank you for Karnavati University and Ahmedabad Design Week for a great hospitality. So I think we have now had a land system, something has been spoken about the land system, something has been spoken about the space system. So I'm going to speak about something that lies in between, that's aerospace, right? So I just want to understand, how many of you, if I may just ask with your permission, so how many of you have interest in aerospace? Just raise your hands. Okay, that's a very decent number. So I'm going to get at least 10% to be more interested in the subject, right? Okay, so how does the Indian aerospace scene look like? So I can broadly, divide the aerospace into two: the commercial aerospace and the defense aerospace. Today I will be speaking more about the defense aerospace, but commercial aerospace is also very significant because it's growing leaps and bounds. And there is a new element that has come into the aerospace, which is the unmanned technologies as well. So coming to India, it's the commercial aerospace scene is very limited. We have two major players in the world, the Boeing and the Airbus, and then some other smaller manufacturers of the aircraft. But essentially, the big commercial aircraft space is taken by these two companies, and then you have smaller companies. In India, the prime organizations, the major organizations are HAL, which is about 80 years plus old, and then you have, which has got its own inherent design abilities as well as manufacturing abilities. And then you have ADA. You may have heard of Tejas, the light combat aircraft. ADA has designed the light combat aircraft. And then you have ADE, which is a DRDO organization, which is responsible for the development of unmanned systems. This essentially captures all the platform makers. And then you have companies that make subsystems and subsystems. But we are essentially here talking about the big companies. It was a very deep pocket to enter into the aerospace, right from heavy investments, test pilots, infrastructure. So it's a very and a very long gestation period. It's a very difficult. You need very deep pockets. So in India, we have only the government-owned companies in the aerospace platform makers space. How do we compare with the world? So that's something which is very difficult question, because in various technologies we are there, and in some technologies we are lagging far behind. Let me put it this way: the aircraft that we have right now, the LCA Mark 1 and which is the LCA Mark 2, which is going to be which is in the stages of development, which are fourth generation aircrafts, 4+ generation. Whereas the Americans are already there in the fifth generation aircrafts about 10 to 15 years back. So we can say at platform level, we are at least about 15 to 20 years behind US. And why does it happen? And that's because the money makes the mayor go, right? So for example, the F-35 platform, which is the fifth generation aircraft, has a development resource of almost $300 billion. And our entire capital acquisition budget is about $20 billion. So that's, that's the huge difference here. So we have a lot of catching up to do. And in that catching up to do, we also have to understand which are the areas where we would like to focus. Spreading yourself too thin may not be the best way. There are several technologies in aerospace domain. So we'll have to identify which are the areas and where do we want to get there. Are we going to be competing with the US? Are we going to be competing with the Chinese? And where do we want to see ourselves in the next 15 to 20 years? Does that answer your question, sir?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much for this. But I think just for the sake of clarity, you see, today, India has developed very successfully in the field of aviation. Our Tejas fighter aircraft is really a great achievement of the country. It may not meet the Air Force requirement 100%. The user has to be always demanding more and more, so it may not. But on its own, it is a huge, I think, effort and success of the country that we have been able to develop. He was mentioning about that thing, Tejas aircraft, LCA. I think I must also, just to say that shabash to all the scientists and the community of aerospace engineers who have been contributing in that. Now, something that I would like to ask you is, which technology needs to be developed now, looking into the future? Because we would like to see and do a little bit of crystal gazing that what kind of technology which is not there today, which our country needs to develop, what are the challenges, etc., in the field of aerospace?
Okay, so if you ask me, let's start with the basics. So you have, what are the 6th generation technologies? You have stealth technology, You have a variable cycle which can cruise at subsonic, supersonic regimes as well. And then you have sensors. So you have a host of technologies in an aircraft, right? So where are we? If you look at it, let's say that in sensor technology or in radar technology or in stealth technology, all these areas, I think we are about 10 to 15 years behind. Do we therefore, the first thing that we need to do is to understand how do we get there, and do we need to get there, and how soon do we need to get there? And do we do it on our own, or do we, do it with someone's help? That's the first question. And so if you look at the technologies there, we are fairly comfortable. That's our airframe structure, composites, those technologies, we are manufacturing technologies, we are almost up there. But in terms of the technologies where there is a significant gap, that's on the engine side, the stealth technologies, the sensor technologies, the radar technologies. How do we get there? So that's like I said, that if you put in a massive amount of investment, and then, like I said, the investment is staggeringly high. The F-35 development takes about about $300 billion, but they're going to manufacture about 2,000 plus aircrafts. Here we are LCA that's going to be manufactured about 200 to 250 aircrafts. So there's also a business case related to each of these investments. So yes, these are the technologies that we are lagging behind, and so we need to do a lot of effort into those areas.
Thank you, Colonel Hariharan. And you have answered this question by asking from the audience, is aerospace a lucrative career option? So we got the answer, but we would like to motivate more and more people to come and join the field of aerospace as aerospace engineers. It is a very lucrative offer, but and a lot of hard work is required. So I'll have some more questions. If time permits, I'll come back to you. But thank you for this lovely answer that you have given. I have now Group Captain Ajay Purandare. And you would be wondering that these army Fajis have gone to each and every field that one is talking about, much beyond the field of just military. There are allied fields. Now, Grupi Purandare is a living example of what a person who has been trained in uniform, what all he can do. He is an expert in the field of forensic sciences, and he is right now also involved greatly in the field of futuristic defense studies. So I have two questions from you, Grupi. When we say futuristic defense studies, what all does it encompass? Okay. Can you paint a scenario for the India in coming decades? What is going to happen 10 years, 20, 30 years from now? Because that is one question that I have from you. And the second is, as far as the forensic sciences are concerned, as a nation, where do we stand? Are we credible? Do we have the capability? Because forensic science itself is not a very well-known field in which we only hear when there's some scams take place or some murder takes place, we hear about forensic sciences, but forensic sciences encompass many, many more things. And today, because of the digital world. So where do you stand in this field as far as a nation capability is concerned? These two questions I have, we could throw some light on that.
Thank you, sir. Am I audible at the back? Can somebody raise his hand? Yeah, thank you. I am Group Captain Purandare. I am from Vadodara. I am head of Center of Futuristic Defense Studies in National Forensic Science Unity, just 20 minutes away. And the question he has asked, I will answer in two parts. Sir has asked. First is, what is futuristic? And my seniors here have talked a lot about aerospace, national policies, the Army, ATB, Brigadier Chanan, General Chanan, we had interacted earlier. So I will pose it as a question. How many of you are interested in unmanned systems design? Okay, I thought there'll be more hands. How many are interested in material sciences? How many are in cyber physical security and cyber physical design? Now, when we looked at futuristic, we realized we will not be in the big league of Tatas or Bharat Force. we looked at 5 segments. We looked at operational software. We looked at cybersecurity, that is hardening our system. We looked at unmanned. We looked at satellite imagery analysis. And we looked at cybersecurity. So we have these 4 to 5 elements that we have identified to work. But if we look at, from a design perspective, I'll not say advice, but my pointers to you will be, look in unmanned systems, replacing all Chinese components, you will get the answer. Which all areas you can work. You can look at material sciences, you can look at coatings, because that is one weak area, and look at antenna-related material research. I think these are the core areas in which, as a design agency, you can look into, and a lot of collaboration can be done, because you'll be working at the core. You're not working at what we work. We work in operational applications, software development, etc. And for that, you will need an ecosystem of leadership, and you will need an ecosystem of lot of simulation top-end softwares. If you can do that, and you can have a correct guiding principle, and you interact with the Army headquarters and Air Force headquarters regularly, then you will understand what core technologies you have to build. Don't bother about the product. If you are strong on the product of these 5 areas that I think are right, I think as a design agency, you will be very well placed in the defense industry in next 2 to 3 years. So these were the areas in which we look into. And the second question was where we stand in terms of forensics and cybersecurity. Firstly, like what my predecessor Colonel Hariharan said, if you are weak in something, you tie up with somebody who is stronger. You collaborate, and we collaborate with the top agencies in the world. We collaborate with American security agencies, American security experts. And that is how we have strengthened ourselves. But if you look at cybersecurity, I would say in the race, the threat is ahead of us. We are lagging behind. Our power structures, our national infrastructure needs a very serious audit to understand where we stand. And the next war will be space and cyber and unmanned. These are the 3 areas where the next wars are going to be. Yes, it is a surprise that Russia has found a land battle, and the land battle will always remain because you have to sit on territory. But these 3 areas wherein you can really, we feel is the next wars are going to be fought, and technology's interest is unmanned systems, cybersecurity, and space situational awareness. And this is where we are working, and we request your presence during the DEF Expo, where we're putting a big stall to exhibit what we're doing. Thank you, sir.
Very well covered, this answer, and really throws some more light, and I also feel I have learned something from what you have said. Yeah, that is true that the next war are going to be fought in unmanned and in space and in cyberspace. I think our country is doing something, but we need to do it a little faster. And when we talk of unmanned thing, I think I'm immediately reminded of friend Leo. He is, I think his credentials at a young age are so impressive. He has done so much of work in the areas of drones, and I will not take time to what all he has done. Only suffice to say that he is the man as far as drones are concerned in India today. He knows everything at the policy level and at the execution level. And I like to use his words, what he has said somewhere, that the future of drones is limited only by human imagination. Beautifully said, because it is a fact. What drones can do, you just have to think of that as a human. It will do that. So that is what I would like to introduce him with these words. Now, the question that I asked from Leo, let me just come to my page. Yeah. Now, that word of drones, WORLD, is expanding in India and abroad at more than exponential pace. We all know it. It's a fact, okay? So how do you describe this scenario to all of us? What all is happening? Can you paint this landscape of drones in all its spheres where it can be used? What is happening in India? Okay. That to start with, then I ask more questions.
That's a large question to answer within a short time. Thank you so much for the question, and I would like to thank the university for the opportunity. Everybody curses COVID except for the drone and the pharma industry. Use of drones actually accelerated after COVID. Until then, we were a struggling industry pretty much underground. 2018 regulation somewhat gave a breather, but COVID actually gave the lease of life for the drone industry, because I was never in a lockdown. I've never stayed at home. Even during the first lockdown, second lockdown, I've never stayed at home. I initially flew for the Bangalore City Police. They said, you guys have been talking about drones, do something right now. So I had a dad's friend who owned a speaker store. We went, got public announcement systems, fixed it to drones, and then flew it in containment zones. That's the first design and innovation that we did on drones. This was all in lockdown. So we had to go to the commissioner's office, get a piece of paper just to go and get that, just to have him open the store and then get the product. And then we had a drone partner who was building agri systems then. Luckily, they had larger platforms to put these speakers on. And that's how it started. And after that, we had Swamvitva, the surveying of the Abadi region in the villages of the 6.6 lakh villages for digital land records, initiated by our Honorable Prime Minister. That is when truly the mapping and survey industry using drones really transformed. Survey of India placed an order for 500 drones. Till then, nobody had seen that size of order in the private industry. It never heard of. And that really helped a lot of companies to grow. And today, I think those companies have crossed 3-4 million in turnover. And that's a very nice part. After that, agriculture saw boom. And today, agriculture drones are in the news. Our Honorable Finance Minister mentioned it in the budget. We recently had our Prime Minister also launch the Kisan drones. And that is also thanks to COVID. Now, you must be wondering how COVID and agriculture is related. When COVID lockdown happened, we had reverse migration of agricultural laborers. South India did not have farm laborers for spraying. And that's when farmers readily accepted drones. And today, they are in so much demand, I get calls 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. to send drones to farms. That's how much demand. And we estimated 150 million hectares of agriculture land requires 5 lakh drones. That translates to 13 lakhs in employment. We take care of 10% of the Prime Minister's employment target. That's how big this entire ecosystem, only in agri-space. I have not even ventured into other domains. And when I started with drones, way back in college, 2009, we were building it as model aircrafts because we wanted to learn how aircrafts flew. And before that was in NCC. And that time, drones majorly were in Bollywood industry, where RC planes were converted with cameras for cinematography, apart from defense, right? Today, we have more than 250 applications in drones, right from collecting DNA of a sperm whale, to plucking fruits from trees, to mostly eliminating satellites going forward. I should not be telling this, but then high-altitude pseudo-satellite systems will come, where we have drones powered by solar flying at 50 kilometers altitude, enabling connectivity and reusability of the platform. And luckily, we are ahead of that. We have companies in Bangalore already working on that system. So we might be 3-4 years behind what US did. But this is how the spectrum is largely growing. And the drone industry also had one boost: defense. Today, the orders procured by IdeaForge, Asteria, and we have Alpha Designs, right? They have given hope, which previously drone companies did not have in the defense. They thought, okay, if we went there, we would burn a year of time and a year of money. Today, that perspective has changed. And because of that, we have large companies venturing into this defense space to supply drones for defense. I have Satya here, my very good friend from Bonvi. They are building a 250 kg payload category drone. They're the only company in India. Nobody else is there. But they have taken that step since there is confidence in the defense procurement today. And every space, right from toys to border surveillance to VVIP personal escort support, everywhere drones are coming into picture. And I think, like the mobile phone, they will become an extension for us 2 years from now.
Okay, so I'll just stop you. Tell me what is going to happen in 2050 as far as the drones are concerned.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
What is going to happen in 2 decades or 3 decades from now? What all drones will be doing?
So you're asking what all drones we will be having?
Yeah. What applications they will be having, how they will impact our life in next 10, 15, 20 years. Because you know how much we could never imagine where we could be using them, and using your words. So how, like mobile phones have changed our lives, Will drones do a similar thing for us?
Yes, they will. So food delivery, Swiggy released their RFP, delivery starts next month. This was a dream 2 years back. You will have drones largely in agriculture for spraying, sowing, harvesting, crop analytics, tree counting, all of that space. You will have drones for afforestation, for planting trees. You will have drones in the renewable energy sector for solar panel inspection, windmill inspection. We already have that right now. We'll have more advanced ones. We'll have drones for NDT testing. So I had the opportunity to build Godrej, first time in India, drones for inspecting metal thickness for their chimneys and silos. What would take them a week and 5 lakhs, took them 4 hours and 50,000. That's what we could do to them. And being a solution integrator, I have this fun. So we go everywhere and I say, I'm Santa Claus, please give me your wish list. And we are also seeing drones in spaces, even drones in anti-drone technology. That's the most interesting part. Drones for perimeter surveillance, large factories, IT infrastructure are looking for that. We've had drones request for moving samples across refineries, where the test lab is at the entrance and the refinery is 2.5 kilometers inside. We've had that request, and we are integrating solution for that. I was luckily part of the vaccine delivery trials in Manipur. And we've had a few of our clients also build systems for vaccine delivery. So healthcare will become more accessible. PHCs will be connected through drones, and you can be in any village in India and then order the most sophisticated medicine and it'll reach to you. So it's continuously growing, and the other space is recreation. Drone racing is becoming a thing right now. And we might have a lot of drone racers competing in the international level because we have a very strong community in that space as well.
Thank you. So I want to tell all of you, you are living in exciting times. In 2022, if you are a young man or woman at 20 to 30 years, you are really blessed. We are not as blessed. You all are. So thank you very much, Leo, for these illuminating words. So now, before I conclude, I will once again like to ask General Jaswal, because he has been at the forefront of the army, any message or something that he would like to tell to a youngster from his side from this platform.
Thank you. Firstly, I must really compliment the kind of articulation of your questions. They were really deep in their content. I can only say one thing, that the nation has got its will now. We have got the will. So we can dare to dream. This is the exact line used by our defense minister. So if we dare to dream, we must provide all kinds of support to what our niche domain. There's 9 inches between the 2 ears, the brain. And I'm sure we as a nation can rise to the pinnacle. Now, since you are doing experimentations on design, etc., the conclave of threat, like General Chanar had also made a mention, it is going to be non-contact warfare, except kinetic in the case of Pakistan, but from China, non-contact warfare. And cyber is one of the most potent form of humbling the enemy. You can imagine a cyber attack just on your banking system. The Rear Admiral has got a fat bank account. I am very poor. His bank account will come to mine and mine will go to him. Sorry. So I will benefit. The Sensex comes down. The NTPC, if there is 10 days of power cut, do you know what the economy is going to suffer like? So I think in this realm, you may like to work on counters of cyber. It's the easiest. And the Chinese, way back in 2007, they were having 26,000 network-centric warriors. Their aim is always this. Secondly, a very peculiar form of warfare is being initiated, which is called designer war. The designer war is that if you want to subdue the country, make it fight against its own internal infirmities and trigger those inadequacies. Like what is going on today in India, these are being triggered, and the two elements are political differences and religious differences. This is being triggered. So this is now called a form of designer war. And it is with an aim. You go back to China, it's white paper 2008. The Global Times in that had mentioned that we have the capacity to divide India into 20 states. I don't know what design can come up, but it has to be basically addressing social media to counter this kind of threat. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the panelists for their very engrossing and detailed and precise answers to my questions. And before I hand over for the overall conclusion of the day, if there is anything any of the panelists would like to add, which they would like to tell the audience youngsters, I can give the mic to them for a few minutes more. In case anything, Hariharan, anything from your side you would like to add, or Groupie, anything you would like to add, if you say something, you can tell them. Okay, fine, yeah. So in case audience has any question, because although that's not a format, but yes, let us do it, because I was asking questions, but the floor is open. In case any of the audience has got any question, we shall field it. Anyone, please feel free. Please give the mic. And please identify yourself. And this question you are posing to whom? If you can say, it will help us.
I beg your pardon, but it's for the drone person who just enlightened us with the conversation. So, so my question is kind of based on a Disney movie. If you have watched it, Wall-E, and they have shown a universe that is dependent upon technology. So, don't you think convenience and accessibility, as you shared in your answer, that drones would be used in food deliveries and stuff? So wouldn't it be like, wouldn't accessibility or convenience of things poses a great damage, or is it hazardous for humankind in the long run?
So, good question. If drones don't do it, people will still come and deliver. Right now, we are trying to solve other challenges. Think of it like this. During COVID, if there was no Swiggy or Zomato, the entire hotel industry would have vanished. Right?
Yeah.
What do you do during those times? So we've always evolved right from when man found fire to putting another drone on another planet. We will always move forward towards convenience. There's no going other way. And we've humanly evolved physically as well to adapt to these surroundings. Today, man is not as strong as what he was 10,000 years ago. Our bodies have changed. And we will keep changing. So change is the only constant, as they say. So if you had the same question about computers, now if I ask this, people would call me crazy, right? But we had this debate when I was in 3rd grade. Is computers a boon or bane? I can't have that debate today, right? So technology evolves, humans also evolve, and technology always empowers. And that's a fact. Maybe it's not, we cannot realize it now, but it will happen in the future. So we always move towards convenience. Hope I've answered your question.
It indeed does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dio.
Can we see the drones in ambulance service?
Drones in ambulance service have already come. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know how to put it, China already pioneered that space. I think here also we should be able to get it in the next 3 years if regulations permit. But they are definitely already there in that space. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, unfortunately, I am time bound and I have exceeded my time so much. Madam is giving me dirty looks. Only one question I can permit. Please decide amongst yourselves whose. Oh my God. 3, 4. Okay, please decide. Yeah, the lady.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, sir, but
Yeah, please ask the question.
Yeah. So my question is also to Mr. Leo. Do you see drones going, because you're saying the limitless boundaries, right? So do you see it evolving as something that can be assembled by the user, because the needs might not be, that they're boundless, right? So somebody might have a need that we are not envisioning right now. Or do you see it going the way that mobile phones are going, where, then you have certain brands and, then you can't even replace the battery and you have to buy a new one, so.
I think the market will decide that. That's too much of a spread for me to put together an answer. Mobile phones were not envisioned to have camera, have these apps and all of that, right? They were only envisioned to remove that cord between the speaker and the headphone and the dialer. That's it. You needed mobility. Today, mobile phone is used less for calls, I guess, And then more for everything else. It's the basic definition itself is changed. So I think it will happen with drones, but it's too far into the future and I'm not able to see that far. So
Okay. Sorry, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting?
I'll just add one more thing. I'm here in the campus for the next 2 days. If you have questions, you can come and ask separately.
Great news. That's great. Okay, now I'll exercise my veto right. One more question I can permit, but non-drone question. Non-drone question? Yeah. Please give him the mic.
Hello, yeah.
Hello, I am Rahul Bhattacharya, a professor at UID. I would like to ask a question regarding the way warfare has been described as going from, let me get it right, from progressive to ending up at disruptive in the middle of being revolutionary, progressive, revolutionary, and disruptive, right? This is very good because in a certain sense it maps the way the design field has also flowed in that way. But at the same time, I have a question. My question is it necessarily a linear progression because the disruptive warfare strategies, with my limited reading of even early warfare manuals, from even how, say, in India, how Arthashastra talks about the use of spies to the art of war, the disruptive strategies have been always present. So is it a linear development the way we are looking about, or the kind of disruptive strategies we are talking about now are different from the disruptive strategies of the past? That is the question.
Okay, thank you. I think very interesting question. I'll very quickly try to answer this. You see, I actually pitched my talk and tried to, because I always realize that this is primarily a design institution, I should kind of lead it on to the design part. So that's how I build it up. So it's a good connect that you made when you related it to the design part. 1. 2, there is a difference between disruptive effect of technology and disruptions in warfare. So what you are asking is, there have always been disruptions, but they were probably tactical disruptions, human interventions, some use of technology. Today, everything is disruptive by nature. So the evolutionary warfare had its own, every battle had some little bit of a element of disruption in it, and that's how you won wars. But today, technology itself is dictating the way you fight wars. So this is a hugely technology-enabled disruption that is happening. That is one part. And because this is a disruption that is happening, the point that I would like to put across is it an opportunity? Yes. Because even the guy, putting it in another manner, I am always getting maximum marks in my class, and I'm topping at the other side, and my friend here is always just getting 30 marks. And suddenly, when both of us appear for an exam, these marks don't count at all. It's an entrance test. So it actually puts us back. So here is an opportunity for us that we do not continue to lag behind the technology curve. This disruption is an enabler to actually get us leapfrog and join right at the back. And that's where I was pitching it to the kids. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering. So that, I think, completes our panel discussion. I must thank from the bottom of my heart all my distinguished panelists for having given their time and answer all the questions. Let us give them a huge round of applause. I quickly hand over to Madam.
Thank you so much, sir. I really would like to thank Rear Admiral Sherawat, sir, and all the esteemed guests for sharing your insights. I now invite Professor Lolita Datta Associate Director of UID, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, all of you distinguished people sitting here today. And I think it has indeed been a very insightful discussion and conversation for a lot of us who are laymen. So once again, thank you very much for that. I would like to thank all of you one by one. So General B.S. Jaswal for talking about transformation. I think it set the tone and pace for the whole discussion. Major General Ashwani Kumar Chananan, insightful discussion and very interesting information about the Indian Design Army Bureau. I think for a lot of our students, it might be an interesting point of view and also information to have. So thank you for that. Dr. Greg Otre, great thank you for being with us today here in India and giving us a very honest international perspective. Really appreciate that. For Shri Sudhir Mishra in absentia, he was not here with us today. I'd like to thank Colonel Hariharan Shankar for talking about aerospace, something I think a lot of us don't know much about, but I think you gave us some very insightful observations and information as well. I'd like to thank Group Captain Ajay D. Purandare for talking about, well, futuristic design defense studies, and I think also about the collaborations that we as designers can have and look forward to in the future. Leo Peter Charles, a big thank you. Obviously a great hit with your information on drones, because I think it is very relevant and pertinent to the times that we live in. So a great thank you to you for that. And last but not the least, big thank you to Rear Admiral Rahul Kumar Sharawat, our moderator. Thank you, sir, for being with us today and leading this discussion into very interesting directions. I'm sure if we take it up in the future, a lot of things can come out of it. So once again, thank you all of you for being here, for coming to Karnavati University with and gracing us with your presence. And last but not the least, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us here today and being a patient audience. Thank you and a good night. Thank you.
As we come to the close of the first day of the Ahmedabad Design Week 3.0, I take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for sharing the insights, enlightening us on some very critical current issues and showing us what opportunities and possibilities lie for the integration of design and defense. Tomorrow we'll be back at 11 a.m. with the DRDO Town Hall, followed by various sessions with mavericks from the defense as well as design sector. We look forward to seeing you there. Have a nice evening, everybody. Thank you.